All right, looks like we're up and running, so we'll go ahead and get started tonight. Welcome, everyone. This is our November 13th Planning Commission public hearing. Can I start with roll call, please?
AJ Summers.
Calais Cruz.
Mitch Levy.
Brian Adams.
Lutador.
And we don't have anybody else online. Before we begin agenda items, is anybody here tonight who would like to give us public comment on something not on tonight's agenda? Okay, great. If there's anybody online, you can raise your Zoom hand as well. Great, seeing none. We'll jump into our, agenda item number 1. This is PL 2025-0276 Opry Skiway Duplex. Is the applicant here for a presentation? Come on up and give us your name and address. And
Before we get started, I've been noticed for this project, so I need to step aside for this one.
Perfect. Thank you, AJ.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. Engineer at Steamboat Engineering and Design. I will be acting as the owner's representative, as well as the designer and the structural engineer for this project. This proposed project is located at 3275 Opry Skiway, Lot 1 of the Stockdale subdivision, and is in the MF2 zone district.
We may need to, what's up, Kelly? Sorry.
It's all right.
They just need one moment.
Oh,
It's all good.
sorry.
Oh, no worries at all.
Yeah. Do they need us to test anything or what are they? Fun, at least we get to watch what he's doing, you know, how he's making
Right.
progress. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, restart.
Is it just that much?
I don't know. Oh, there's the turn off, turn back on again approach.
I know, turn it on, turn
Good.
it off.
You could hear that, Rich.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? You too can be an IT coordinator.
Mhm.
No, I couldn't.
At least they get screwed up by the same Windows stuff I get screwed up by, so I feel pretty good about that.
And that will be all.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
Or like when they open these windows, it's always weird looking to me too, because they're always closed. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What should we talk about instead? Should we talk about the weather?
I mean, it's been a nice fall.
It's been a nice fall. When
Yeah.
do we think the first snow is going to happen?
Hopefully soon.
Is it going to happen soon?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has to.
Right.
You know any jokes?
Boy, not very many. I wish I did.
Does that mean it can't be recorded? Is that what's going on?
No. I don't know if it's broadcasting microphone or Zoom,
Zoom.
or if it's just the microphone in general.
Yeah. Oh, none of it, not even ours? Oh, that seems to be not a good thing.
Bet they'd have to table
Do you have a tape recorder?
it. Anyone online isn't hearing it. More than just the minute taker.
He's one of those owls.
Yeah, then we couldn't have minutes.
Try ahead, or are we good for sure? Okay, thank you. That's great. Sorry for the interruption.
No worries at all. I get it.
Too bad. I appreciate your patience with us. Yeah, go for it. Well, maybe because they couldn't hear us, we'll just acknowledge to anybody that might be trying to listen online that we are in agenda item number 1. This is PL 2025-0276 Opry Skiway Duplex, and our applicant's representative is presenting to us.
Do we need to do introductions? again?
Call?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Would you like me to start over from the beginning that way?
That's completely up to you.
Okay.
If you want to.
That way people online could hear
Great.
everything from the beginning. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is Ryan Malone. I'm a senior engineer at Steamboat Engineering and Design. I will be acting as the owner's representative, as well as the designer and the structural engineer. The proposed project is located at 3275 Opry Skiway, Lot 1 of the Stockdale subdivision, and is in the MF2 zone district. The proposed development is a 2-unit residential duplex, which requires a conditional use approval for the MF2 zoning. This lot is an infill property and proves many difficult challenges. It is oddly shaped with Opry Skiway wrapping along 2 sides of the lot. It has steep topography with an elevation loss of over 42 feet from the top to the bottom. This lot is in the middle of 3 MF2 zone lots, with the upper lot having an existing multi-unit building, which is a by right use, and the lower lot having an existing single-family residence, which is a conditional use. Although a multi-unit development is a use by right in this zone district, the design team and the owner decided that a duplex would be much less intrusive to the surrounding properties, as a multi-unit development has more potential negative impacts. A multi-unit property would create higher density along the narrow Opry Skiway, which would increase traffic and have a greater impact to the surrounding properties. Additionally, more parking spaces would be required, creating a larger driveway and increasing the development's lot coverage. With a larger driveway required, more snow storage would be required, which would potentially start to encroach on the neighboring properties, causing drainage concerns. Potentially more light pollution and noise would be generated from a multi-unit property compared to the proposed duplex. With all this in mind, a duplex is being proposed to minimize the potential negative impacts to all surrounding property owners. The proposed developer of this lot is a local contractor that has lived in the valley for 20 years. They employ over a dozen people working and living in Routt County. If approved, all subcontractors and trades will be local companies benefiting the local economy. The anticipated construction timeline is approximately 15 to 18 months from start of construction to completion. The construction will strictly adhere to the construction sound ordinances and only allow work between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Every effort will be made to minimize the disruption of the surrounding properties. Safe access to the lot was one of the main driving factors and influences of the design of the proposed development. The subdivision was replatted in 2015, and during the initial replat, the driveway access was shown from the lower portion of the lot. In order to provide access from the lower portion of the lot, a 22-foot tall retaining wall was required to be constructed directly below the multifamily unit. Access from the lower portion of the lot has many negative impacts to all properties. Driveway access would be along the blind hairpin corner of Opry Ski Way, creating a life safety concern not only for the duplex occupants, but also for the surrounding properties. The installation of a 22-foot tall retaining wall has the potential to affect the soils and foundation of the existing multi-unit property above. The driveway would need to be constructed near the north property line. With the proximity of the adjacent residences, the extremely tall retaining wall and steep topography on this portion of the lot, adequate snow storage would not be able to be achieved. Access from the lower portion of the lot would be more disruptive to the single-family residents below and the adjacent duplexes compared to the proposed access from the top portion of the lot. Based on this, the design team felt that access from the top of the lot was not only the safest option, but also the least disruptive and impactful to the surrounding properties. The proposed driveway meets all city engineering grade and width standards for emergency vehicles and is not requesting any variances, nor is it creating massive retaining walls. The proposed duplex was designed to stair-step down the steep slope following the existing topography as much as possible to minimize mass and overall scale. The building was oriented and placed as close to the south setback line to minimize the driveway length as much as possible. Minimizing the driveway length allows the building to be built into the hillside, reducing the overall height and scale of the development. The proposed development was thoughtfully designed to meet and exceed every CDC and city engineering design standard and is not requesting any variances. This project is being recommended for approval by the planning department. SCAD met with the planning department and went through numerous iterations to ensure full compliance with the Community Development Code standards. Further, SCAD, the developer, and 4 Points Engineering have diligently worked on solutions to address the public comments, which we will discuss later. The single-family design standards are more restricted in the MF2 zoning compared to the multifamily design standards. The proposed duplex meets and exceeds all of the single-family design standards except for one, the average plate height. The average plate height of 29.8 feet is only 1.8 feet taller than the single-family maximum, but it is 5.2 feet lower than the multifamily maximum in this zone district. The overall height of 37.7 feet is 2.25 feet lower than the single-family maximum of 40 feet. It is also 19.25 feet lower than the multifamily maximum of 57 feet. Throughout design iterations, the upper-level wall plate heights were minimized, and low-profile roofs were utilized in an effort to reduce the overall height and mitigate any potential negative effects of shading towards surrounding properties in Opry Ski Way. Stormwater management has been a concern from surrounding property owners for this project. I will let my colleagues from 4 Points Surveying discuss in further detail the proposed stormwater drainage systems, but to touch on this subject briefly, the stormwater drainage was thoughtfully and intentionally over-designed to ensure no negative impacts are felt by the surrounding properties. All roofs are designed to have gutters and downspouts, so stormwater is directed to the on-site drainage features. Some of these features include the use of area drains, drainage swales, as well as underground drain tile to direct the flow of runoff to a detention pond on the northeast portion of the lot. The drainage study conducted found that these proposed stormwater drainage systems are not required, however, are still being constructed to reduce negative impacts to the surrounding properties. By implementing the proposed drainage features, the drainage study determined the downstream neighbors and lower portion of Opry Ski Way will experience less stormwater runoff compared to existing conditions. The design team has worked diligently with a local geotechnical engineer to ensure the proposed foundation systems are adequately designed and overall slope stability is achieved. The building is stair-step down the hill to minimize the exposed retaining walls as much as possible. The exposed retaining walls proposed are a maximum of 6 feet tall tiered boulder retaining walls. By utilizing tiered walls, the overall scale of the project is reduced and no large hazardous site retaining walls are proposed. The duplex was designed to minimize the proposed lot coverage to keep as much open space as possible. A condition of approval for the subdivision replat in 2015 was to provide 15% of open space on this lot. The current proposed development is providing 65% of the lot as open space. Not only is this development meeting this condition, it is providing over 400% more than required. The additional open space allows for more landscaping and buffer space between the adjacent neighbors. Additionally, the amount of open space aims to reduce the negative impacts to wildlife, although wildlife effects are not a requirement of this project. A conceptual landscape plan has been proposed even though it is not required in an effort to show how the proposed development is mitigating any negative impacts to the surrounding properties. Many native trees are proposed along the property lines to soften the duplex's appearance from surrounding properties as well as Opry Skiway. Not only will the proposed landscaping help soften the duplex's appearance, it will provide sound reduction and provide native landscaping on a lot that is primarily bare. All exterior lighting has been designed to be shielded and downcast in accordance with the CDC standards to minimize any negative light pollution to the surrounding properties. In conclusion, this lot is a very challenging infill lot. However, the design team has thoughtfully designed a development that meets and exceeds every CDC and city engineering standard and is not requesting any variances. Before I turn it over to my colleagues from Four Points, I want to thank you all for your time and consideration of this development. I'll be available to answer any questions that you may have upon completion. Thank you, guys.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cameron Breton. I'm a civil EIT for 4 Point Surveying and Engineering. And I have a presentation to share, so I'll be requesting to share my screen. So I prepared this presentation. Visual aid renderings are prepared by SEAD. So just quickly for anyone who isn't familiar with the project location, we're mountainside south of Walton Creek. Zooming in, you can see that this parcel of land is sort of the last vacant parcel in the vicinity. A little bit more background on the site. It's 0.4 acres. It's zoned MF2. It is currently vacant, but considered a prime site and was most recently platted in 2016 at the reception number shown on the screen. Just a little bit summarizing and kind of giving a visual aid for some of the topics that Ryan was covering here. This is a code compliance table showing the dimensional standards of the building in relation to the design. And as he said, that it's not requiring any variances, and that's just to show that there. An overview of the site plan. Ryan touched on some of the boulder walls to soften the appearance. Because of the vertical fall on this site and the existing topography, it tears down, and a succession of 6-foot tiered boulder walls are used to soften the appearance of the height. Onto the drainage. So this existing site was analyzed in 2 separate basins. The larger of the 2 being the southern. We're calling it EB2. It takes the majority of the drainage and deposits onto Opry Skiway. So our goal with the plan was to improve the situation. The second basin is EB1, and that outfalls to the north. So our goal was to direct drainage to the north and away from Opry Skiway. In our drainage study that we performed for this development plan, we analyzed the site into 3 separate subbasins. Subbasin 3 is along the south side of the property, and subbasin 1 is along the east side of the property. And both of those go to the north corner of the property. I can try to use a laser pointer now. So at the triangle, it says 3 in it, kind of at the south there, there's an inlet, and that wraps around via the underdrain tile and ultimately discharges at the detention pond. This detention pond is not a requirement of the site, but it was implemented to release increased flows from imperviousness at a historical rate and away from Opry Skiway. The big highlight here is in this chart in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, which shows that existing Basin 2, which was contributing most of the drainage to Opry Skiway, had a 5-year storm discharge of 0.13 CFS and a 100-year storm discharge of 0.91 CFS. And now the only drainage basin that's going to that same outfall point on Après Skiway is essentially 30% less for a 100-year storm and the same for a 5-year storm. 65% of the site drains to the north and away from Après Skiway and the downhill residences. Here are just some photos of some of the conveyance methods in case anyone isn't familiar with a swale or an underdrain tile, inlet and a detention basin. We've done the design for the drain tile to show that it can gravity flow with sufficient cover to the pond in this location. This is our construction site management plan to mitigate the impacts to the surrounding properties during construction of the project. All slopes steeper than a 2-to-1 or a 50% grade will receive erosion control blankets, as shown per the detail in the top right corner of the plan. And then along the northwest property line, that green line represents a wire and reinforced silt fence, which is basically an upgraded silt fence, and it is much less likely to fail during a surge storm event. And it's one of the examples of an additional precautionary measure we're using to help mitigate the impacts of construction during this project. So in conclusion, this is a very challenging site. 42 feet of elevation change. We feel that a duplex is less impactful than the use by right multifamily construction, and there's no variances required for this project. Drainage was evaluated with extreme emphasis on directing it away from Après Skiway and the downhill residences. Thank you all for your time, and I'll be here as well to answer any questions regarding the civil design.
Great. Thank you, Cameron. And does staff have a presentation as well?
Yes, I do. I have a brief presentation. Thank you very much. My name is Bob Keena. I'm Principal Planner with the City of Steamboat Springs Planning Department, and I am covering for Toby Stauffer, who is the project manager and provided the staff report. So I appreciate the applicant's detailed presentation. I will try not to repeat too much of what's been said. But as noted, this is a proposal for a development plan, conditional use, with the conditional use being for a duplex on a multifamily zone district lot. As noted, the project meets all of our development standards, our dimensional standards, lot coverage, building height, FAR, those standards, as well as the duplex design standards. We also find that it's consistent with the new community plan as well as the previous one. As noted, there's been some public comment on this application that you've received within the packet, and also there's been a rainbow public comment sent with some pictures. So just want to note that for the record. I think given the extent of the applicant's presentation, I'll conclude my presentation and be available for any questions. So
No problem.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any questions from commissioners? I'll start with one. So I'm looking at the zoning map. And I appreciate that you're jumping.
Sorry, I didn't note that we are recommending approval with conditions as noted in the
Appreciate
staff
it.
report. So thank you.
I saw that in there, but thank you. Yeah. It seems like there's a bit of a peninsula of multifamily zoning along this road, and that the multifamily zoning is kind of in the minority of Après Skiway zoning. I appreciate that you're filling in for Toby, and I'm
Sure.
making you jump into that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yes.
Maybe just
Yeah,
help me if I'm
yeah.
reading it wrong or not, but I'm
Right.
seeing
No, not at all.
multifamily one
Yeah.
that's got a duplex on it to the east. I'm seeing multifamily 3 that's to the north that has a single family on it. So it seems like there's a lot of multifamily zoning that doesn't have multifamily in this area.
That's correct. There is a variety of housing types and uses with residential uses within this area. Yeah, and I would agree that you've characterized the adjacent uses correctly, the majority of Opry Skiway is single family with some duplex. Same with the approach from Walton Creek along Opry Skiway. So it is, yes, a variety.
Thank you. And then there's another thing I apologize to not be able to give you ahead of time. The RN3 and RE2 zones that are the majority of Opry Ski across the street and kind of down the street, do those allow duplexes or are those all single family only zoning?
They would allow duplexes so long as they have the minimum lot size for duplex.
Understood. I won't make you know the answer to those ones.
Look it up.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Any other questions?
I just wanted to make sure covered some of the discussion topics from the comment that was received, and it talked about insufficient snow storage, insufficient parking. And I was wondering if you could comment that in your evaluation, did you find adequate snow storage and adequate parking?
Yes, both of those meet our minimum standards.
Other questions? Rich, yeah.
I have more of a, I guess, philosophical question. The reference to both the new and the newly adopted area plan and the old area plan. Luckily, there's no conflict with either one. But if there was a conflict, which area plan would an applicant be required to meet?
The one that was effective at the date of their complete application.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought was the answer.
Any other questions? One public comment that was submitted that we read was talking about the future, now, it was really language from the existing community area plan regarding, I'm going to have to, how did I write down how they summarize that? It was talking about compatible scale and character with the surrounding neighborhood. My understanding, but please help me if I'm wrong, does that give leverage to a quasi judicial body to be able to put any enforcement on a limit of square footage on a residential unit?
Only so much as the use is conditional use and to mitigate impacts identified.
But theoretically, there is an avenue to do that, you think?
Theoretically, through conditional use, so long as it's clear what impacts are being mitigated by any request to that.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the clarity. Yeah. Other questions? Okay. If there's no other questions from us, is there any public comment on this agenda item? Yeah, if there's public comment, you can come down, give us your name and address, and try and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
My name is Ethan Summers and I live at 3333 Opry Skiway. My family's home is the single family lot directly in front of this proposed duplex, and it doesn't fit into our established neighborhood at all. No duplexes or single family homes around it are that large, and this is going to change our neighborhood and impact our lives and not in a positive way. The lot behind us used to be like a wildlife corridor, and I know that that's not really that relevant to this project, but now it's just going to be some giant duplex that people are going to be in for 2 weeks a year. Steamboat has a need for more housing, but not max square footage for minimum units and a high price tag. I think the city government needs to protect the people who already live here and not the bank accounts of developers.
Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate it. Is there any additional public comment? And if there's anybody online who would like to give us a public comment as well, if you could raise your hand and I can call on you.
Your screen, so I just captured this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Tracy Alexander. I live at 3335 Après Ski Way, which is one house down the hill from the proposed duplex. The conditional use criteria for approval includes two that are not met for this application, in my opinion. The first is the use will mitigate negative impacts to surrounding properties. The second is the use is compatible with the community area plan. I have 3 points to show this. My first is their snow melt and water drainage plan, and thanks to Cameron for providing more detail on that. In my opinion, their plan does not mitigate nearby homes from flooding or the road from becoming an ice rink in the winter. Currently, the snow melt runs from that lot down to Après-Ski Way into a small ditch south of my house. The ditch overflows, runs down the hill, under my stairs, under my deck, and around my foundation. I use sandbags and channels to route the water away. With the huge footprint, the land that can absorb that water will be greatly reduced. In their drainage study, there is mitigation for subbasin 1 and 3. Subbasin 2 has no mitigation, that's my understanding, which drains directly down to Après-Ski Way. Subbasin 3 relies on a PVC drain and pipe to run from one side of the lot to the other to a retention basin. This flow would require the drain, which is shaded by the apartment building to the south, not to freeze. In the winter, it will. In the spring, snow melts and flows down. That shaded, frozen drain is in the ground and insulated. It will be the last thing to thaw. All the water from subbasin 2 and 3 will run down to the road and either freeze or flow down and around my home. My second point is the shading effect. A house of this size will block the sun from the houses on the downhill side of it. It will also shade Après-Ski Way as it goes downhill to a 180-degree hairpin turn right in front of my house. The size of this building will block the morning sun on the road. This would cause icy conditions which could lead to an out-of-control vehicle ending up in my living room. My third point is that I feel it's a clear violation of the community area plan. The plan states that infill development must meet the size and character of the existing neighborhood. This structure is a castle in the middle of peasant homes. You could fit 7 of my house's footprints into this duplex's footprint. It is the same size as the apartment building to the south of it, which provides 25 homes. It clearly does not fit in with the existing neighborhood. The developer is trying to get the best of both worlds. They want the size of a multifamily structure, a huge duplex which allows them to sell 2 large properties without the additional costs of the multifamily requirements of parking and fire safety access, which would impact their dollar per square foot. They are seeking to increase their ROI at a cost to the character of the neighborhood and existing local families. If they want to build a duplex, rezone the lot to single family and apply the rules for single family to it. This approach would likely meet the requirements of the community area plan, in my opinion. Please deny this conditional use application, and thank you guys for your time.
Thank you very much. Good timing as well. Any additional public comments on this agenda item? All right, don't see any in person, and I don't believe I see any online. Again, you can raise your hand using the react button if you do. Okay, seeing none. Is there any final follow-up that the applicant would like to give us?
Thank you, guys. I do want to address that a duplex is a use by right in the RN3 and the RE2 zoning. And those zone dimensional standards are less strict than the MF2 zoning. There's no square footage limitation in these zone districts, whereas there are square footage limitations in the MF2 zoning right now, which we are under and we do meet. So this duplex would be approved in all of the other surrounding zone districts as well. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any final follow-up from staff?
Yes, just one thing to clarify for the record. Regarding the snow storage, I need to mention that there are no minimum requirements for snow storage for duplex in single family. So
Okay.
by virtue, they're meeting it, but there isn't a.
There is no standard.
There is no requirement to have that 2-to-1 ratio.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes.
If I could pile on and ask one final follow-up from us, there also is not any requirement for stormwater runoff management in duplex and single-family projects as well, correct?
That is my understanding, though I'm not entirely qualified to answer that question. Engineering could, but there is perhaps because this is a development plan, it would be required, but typically no.
Great. Thank you. Any other final questions from commissioners?
I'll follow up
Yeah,
with
please.
public comment for staff.
Thank you. Yeah, I did look. Yeah.
For our shading, we do have some regulations regarding shading, but in the past, I thought the only time we really take actual shading into consideration is if there's a height variance. Otherwise, shading comes with the territory, as it were.
Right. Yes, generally, that is correct, though we don't have any shadings. The shading standards that we do have are for commercial and multifamily development, I think specifically for the base area and shading of like public plazas and public gathering areas. And I don't think they apply to streets, though I think, yes, with a height variation, you're looking at impacts. So I think everything's on the table that you can associate impacts to a variance.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Okay. Nope.
Just in response to public comment recently received, I'd just like to mention that there is berry associated with this drain tile, and it is not expected to run year-round in the colder months when freezing is an issue. We're not as much concerned with runoff that time of the year. And one other thing that was not analyzed in terms of the existing site is there is a 10-foot snow storage easement in the front of that property that has historically been used for private and public snow storage. Personally, been out surveying on that site when there's a very, very large amount of snowfall stored in that area. So the runoff calculations are based on rainfall intensity, and that snowfall storage that was previously on the site won't be there in that area because there'll be a driveway access. So I think less snow storage will be present on site, accumulating to less runoff. And the basin analysis does show that ultimately the conditions will only be improved for Apres Skiway.
Thank you, Cameron. Cameron, while you're up here, are you aware along Opry as it winds down, does it have much of a developed drainage system on this road? I know some of our roads in town do and some definitely do not. I wasn't aware of this one.
That's a good question. It has very minor drainage development. There is a shallow ditch there, which is why we certainly want to take more overland flow away from that area and direct it to a vegetated area, the north side of the lot.
Great, thank you. Any other final questions? I'll close our public portion and come to commissioners for discussion and a motion.
I have no problem with the fact that this is a duplex rather than a multifamily, which I would think would be more intrusive. And I think the applicant stated that. I am a little concerned about the runoff issues, although based on the technical expertise of the applicant, they're saying that there'll be less runoff than there was in the natural condition. And they've made efforts to move flow away from Apres Skiway. Obviously, it is a difficult site. I think they made the right decision in moving the driveway and not having it accessed from, on a 30-foot slope. And that's about all I have. So I'm in favor of this project. And it has no variances.
Thank you, Lou. Any other discussion or motion?
I agree with what Lou was stating, and some of the concerns that were raised are real concerns, except for us, the judgment is whether it meets the code or not.
Right.
We have engineers that I am not certainly, that evaluate those things and make sure that that health and safety issues are addressed. So I have to trust them until I have proof otherwise that something is wrong with this application. And as far as like the size of the building, I mean, our zoning is really about appearances. When we have size and lot coverage, it's what does it look like? And to the public, it doesn't matter whether it is a single family or a multifamily, it's the size of it, and does the size meet the zoning? And it does, and as also is pointed out in the staff report, that it actually meets most of the single family or duplex dimensional requirements as well.
And just to tack onto that, the question, the real question is whether they've mitigated the potential impacts of the conditional use, right? That's pretty much the only thing we can comment on. And they've provided a detention pond that was not required. They've provided landscaping that is not required. And they've designed the building in such a way that I think that even though it is massive, coming down that hill, they kept the height pretty reasonable on that upper level and kept the highest part of the building well away from that lower site. I really don't think that there are going to be shadow issues. I don't think it's going to be shading Après Skiway. I mean, I don't know. I don't see a shadow plan, but I know that the highest part of the building is nowhere near the lower part of Après Skiway. So have they mitigated the potential issues? And not only have they mitigated the potential issues, I could see so much worse with a multifamily building there for all of those things. So they've mitigated what they can, and it could be a lot worse, in my opinion. So I think the answer is yes, they have mitigated the potential issues.
Great. I agree with the three of you. I think those are really good points you brought up, and especially when it's compared to that the conditional change, right? I'm just saying it my way, but what you guys have already said is the conditional changes, they're doing one less unit. They could have maximized the lot coverage. They're at 22.3%. They could have had 40% of lot coverage. They're pretty much maximized on floor area ratio, so there would have had to have been a lot of sprawl instead of vertical development to do that, granted. But when we look at what was just allowed by right was a multifamily with an unlimited theoretical number of units that could have gone taller and could have therefore needed more parking and more hardscape by right. I don't think that this conditional use is creating a new adverse impact. That is not to say that I don't understand the neighbors' concerns. My last question that I asked the applicant, the civil engineer applicant, was kind of on purpose. I think the bigger problem is that the drainage on the road is inadequate. And I don't think that is something the city needs to find the resources to resolve on not only Après Ski, but we could find a bunch of roads in town. That is something that ought to be resolved. And I definitely see the concern that the neighbors are worried about. But I don't think it is the fault of this project specifically. And again, I know I'm just saying what I think you guys already put really well, just in my own words. But I noticed that. I also noticed that we're in the STR red zone. So as far as like multifamily versus how this duplex, kind of what its expectation is, I think that's worth noting. And again, kind of to my line of my earliest questions, I mean, I thought about this and evaluated the conditional use based on the MF zoning. It seems to me, if I had to put words in the mouth of whoever created this zoning when it was created, is that it probably was to encapsulate the multifamily project that was to the south and not create spot zoning out of it. But really that one is more the outlier, and this one probably belonged as more of a RN3 like the rest of the neighborhood is around it, which this is then meeting, except for what would be an average plate height variance that's a minor adjustment based on 40-foot steep topography. I think it is fitting within the intent of all the surrounding zoning and what I think this one probably should have been. So I can look at it both ways and see that this is really fitting where it ought to be. Yes, it's a huge structure, but there's really not anything that I see that is forcing us to say that is a unique problem.
And I
That's all I
think
got.
on top of what you were saying about, well, no. One of the public comments was about rezoning, and that's what should have happened here. And rezoning back to RN3, I think, is what the majority around that that property are. And I think that it would have kind of shot them in the foot. They would have had smaller setbacks and been able to do pretty much this exact same building if they rezoned to RN3, which I completely understand their concerns, but I don't think that there was any way that this building was going to be disallowed. So that's, yeah.
No, I think that's an accurate assessment. I really do.
All right. Anybody want to make a motion or
Yeah,
any other discussion?
Oh, motion to approve PL 2025-0276 with conditions, and I can't remember how many conditions there were.
5.
And my screen is black.
5.
5 conditions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that motion? I don't think any of us went through item by item on the criteria for conditional use, but I do think we spoke to all of them in their own way. So probably not too much more to add. Yeah, so in that case, I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
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 And that passes unanimously, 4-0. Thank you for your time. And thank you for your time, your public comment. I will go into our second agenda item here this evening. This is PL 2025-0234, 1830 Ski Time Square Drive Development Plan. Before we get started,
I need to recuse myself from these two because my firm's on the design team.
I'm not sure if you came up. AJ is going to recuse himself as he's on the design team, or his firm and him. That being said, is the applicant here for a presentation?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Steve Shaleski with Blue Sage Ventures. Been before you before. A couple years ago, we brought this project for a conceptual development plan. I am currently formed a joint venture with Orion Real Estate and Development, a Jackson, Wyoming-based firm who's active in Jackson and Park City. And so together we're acting as co-developers and joint venture partners. The site is a part of the Clock Tower holdings that I purchased 11 years ago, believe it or not. Sold really everything off except for this one parcel, which I kept to self-develop, which I've been kind of waiting for the right time. I think that time is upon us. It's a challenging site, but we see some great opportunities and uniqueness about it, especially with the view potential and the ability to kind of create a pedestrian scaled presentation down on the street level. I believe we've arrived at the right design. Site organization was a critical component of that. We've got a good team with 4240 leading the charge on design. And with that, I'll turn it over to DJ Gratzer to make a presentation, and I'll be available for questions as well as Ryan with Landmark.
Great.
Thank you again, DJ Grasser with 4240 Architecture. Just want to start by thanking you all at the Planning Commission as well as staff. Bob and Kelly have been very helpful in getting to where we are here today. So our site, 1830 Ski Time Square, is really a split site between two roadways, Burgess Creek, which is an upper kind of sloping road, and Ski Time Square Drive. It's a uniquely shaped parcel with quite a bit of grade change. We have over 45 feet of rise across the site. As you can see, uniquely shaped parcel with a limited amount of frontage along Ski Time Square. As we started to look into developing this site, really we saw this as the confluence of kind of two different, not really zones, but characters. And one of them along Burgess Creek being much more passive and residential. And then that of Ski Time Square and looking at the history of it being much more active, as well as the intent from the Mountain Area Master Plan. And so as we looked to, one of our original goals was really to play up that activation along Ski Time Square Drive. And in doing so, we wanted to push all of the vehicular access from a drive standpoint off of Burgess Creek Road so that we could really maximize that along that frontage. Excuse our overly kind of crude diagram, but the goal was to locate much of the massing higher up towards Burgess Creek where the residential access took place and really maintain views, but also really maintain sunlight and views along the southern portion of the parcel, keeping more of a pedestrian active scale and massing along Ski Time Square, as well as being quite generous to the neighboring east and west parcels so that we weren't building really a 105-foot high with an 8-foot setback along those three, call it southern property lines. And in doing so, we also wanted to integrate with the site and make the stepping with the topography feel somewhat natural and one of a kind for this special place and this site. And in doing so, really reflecting on what is unique about Steamboat Springs, what is unique about the history and building forms here, both large buildings and small, and how do we make this a project that is unique to this place and this place alone, and tried to do that in really a lot of the ornamentation and the way that the roof scales have been broken down throughout the project. And then going back to this step back along Ski Time Square, how do we really preserve that for the residents as this great amenity that has great views, great sunlight, is great to our neighboring parcels, and also has kind of a pedestrian scale activation of Ski Time Square. And then thinking about ranch traditions being reinterpreted and the glow and lantern and unique forms that make people want to live here in Steamboat over other characters of other Colorado and regional mountain towns, really playing up on this being a one-of-a-kind place and solution. And here is kind of our final form and massing. A couple bird's eye views here, one taken from the southeast and on the right, and then on the left, the smaller rendering is taken from the southwest. And then here is a section kind of taken through central to the site, and really just wanted to point out that this is two parcels, or excuse me, one parcel, but two buildings on the same site. They are reliant upon each other for parking and methods of egress, but they are two separate buildings that have separate opening protectives from a building code standpoint and also from a kind of zoning standpoint. But really, we designed this to be perceived and really function as one project that is reliant upon each other, and also wanted to point out that the highest dimensions on the site are really central and internal as it relates to our building massing. And then where grade continues to rise up towards Burgess Creek, we're in that, call it 60 to 70 foot facade. We are also set back some 20 to 25 feet where a snow storage easement takes place. And we've got some drawings to show that in a couple slides here. We'll go on some kind of fly through some perspectives here around the site. This is taken from Ski Time Square, looking directly north. As we pan around, want to point out the pedestrian public access stair. This was a requirement to have a public access from Burgess to Ski Time. We also located on the western portion of the site and further stepped our building massing back from our western neighbor there for this access stair and for that vehicular drive. As we pan around, you can see where that drive access takes place. Like to point out that the parking level here starts above grade on this lower portion of Burgess, and then as the drive raises up in topography, it becomes almost level or almost below grade as we work around here to the north. This is where that snow storage easement is. So it is a vegetated swale and buffered zone between Burgess and between our building. And then the topography really drops off quite steeply as we get over here on the eastern portion of the site. And our parking level is almost a story or story and a half above grading at that most extreme point. I would point out where I took the section earlier, I think it was 87 feet. Our highest building height is 97 feet. Again, we're in 105-foot height maximum, and the 97 feet is really on this south to southeastern property line where we are neighboring the eastern parcel, quite set back from both right-of-ways. Here's a rendering of the project that will maybe come back on as we turn it over back to staff. And then this is a view from that amenity terrace where we talked about really preserving daylight and views. Really what's special about Steamboat and why people want to be here is connection to the outdoors, and we really didn't want to overdevelop the site. We wanted it to be something that was very connected to the reasons that people come to Steamboat. Next, I'll go through the conditional uses. The first one has to do with residential or accessory to residential along Ski Time Square Drive. Really, this is our pedestrian portal for residents to access the mountain, both carrying their skis for access to skiing, also access to just heading to kind of the Gondola Square area, and is the only break between what we have planned as a commercial restaurant space and some building services over there on the left side is this lobby and ski storage area. It's also where the elevator connection is up to that amenity level for the residents. The second part of this conditional use is for residential within dimensional criteria along Burgess Creek Drive, and really where this starts out, where the parking is above grade, this is really not a condition. However, where Burgess Creek continues to rise in elevation, it becomes set within that first story. Again, want to point out that there is a buffer for landscaping and snow storage that is a break between that new pedestrian sidewalk that the project is putting in and the actual building. Next, going through the variances, the first being related to retaining wall heights. Looking over here on the western part of the parcel, this is where we have that pedestrian access stair coming through, and would like to point out that if we didn't have this element of the public access stair, we would have the adequate space to step these retaining walls and avoid this variance. However, it's a difficult site with the slope topography and with the element of the buffering and dimensional needs of this access. We have applied for a variance due to the retaining wall heights here and not an inability to step them. Then over on the eastern portion of the site, this really weighs into we designed this wanting it to be perceived as one project, cohesively working together. However, behind this portion where the kind of the red dashed line is actually site retainage rather than building. So if that was building area, we would not need a variance. Oh, excuse my click. Since it is site retainage, it is beyond that dimensional criteria, and we are applying for a variance, really looking for this project to feel cohesive between the lower building and the upper building. The second variance has to do with the step backs in that dimensional criteria. Really the reasoning for these are where stair cores want to be for structural and lateral needs, as well as part of our egress system and getting occupants directly out to the right of way. And what we have tried to do here is hook a small dimension of building mass to these so that we are not caking the building. And would also like to point out that these are set back from both eastern and western neighbors where we are complying with those setbacks fully. So they are not further shadowing a condition of eastern or western neighbors. Again, the building on this north side is already set back from the Burgess Creek right-of-way due to the snow storage easement. And then looking at two areas on the south side of the building, our original interpretation was that the lower Ski Times Square building fulfilled the intent of the CDC as it related to a step back. However, since these are two separate buildings, we completely understand staff's interpretation of this and would like to include these two areas in the variance under the same criteria of our structural needs and our egress needs, and point out that they are two internal areas where they're not on corners of the building. They are not overshadowing neighbors and do not have any adverse effects. The third variance has to do with the primary slope along the lower Ski Times Square building. Really, the intent of this building is to be resident amenity, a portion of green roof, and just a portion of mechanical screening. And the intent was to keep the roofs low for both daylight and views, and again, not overshadowing of our neighbors or impacting views from our site. And fourth and final variance here, thank you for bearing with me, it has to do with not meeting the 42-inch high parapet roof heights. We have 4 conditions where these secondary roofs are proposed as flat roofs. There will be one on the north side I'll get to in a second, but really 3 of these are just covering balcony spaces. And really the way we have designed this project is for all outdoor balcony areas to be covered, as well as these secondary roof or flat roof elements to really work for snow management and really safety from the 6 to 12 or the higher roof pitches, because it is a tall building. I'll try to respect my time, and thank you. Should I just leave this slide here? Should I turn it over? Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you for your presentation. We'll let you know if we have any questions. Kelly, do you have a presentation as well?
I do. Thank you. Kelly Douglas, Senior Planner. This is a development plan, major use, major variance and conditional use application before you tonight. I'll try not to be redundant. The subject site, we've talked about that. It's 0.7 acres. Located Burgess Creek Road, Ski Times Square to the south. It's a steep site. It slopes down from Burgess Creek to Ski Times Square. It's currently undeveloped. So now I'll summarize the proposal. It's a mixed-use development. It is proposed to include 20 multiple family residential units and about 2,200 square feet of restaurant space, along with other public realm improvements, including a new sidewalk along Burgess Creek, an enhanced Ski Times Square frontage with outdoor dining, upgraded lighting, landscaping. Off-street parking is a component of the proposal. That was part of the conceptual development plan from a few years back. That actually expires on the 15th. So it's still vested as of today. And then there's also a prominent stair connection linking Ski Times Square Drive to Burgess Creek Road. So that's an important improvement. Regarding uses, multiple family residential and restaurant are the principal uses proposed. Multiple family residential is a limited use in the G2 zone district. However, because residential is proposed within the pedestrian active building frontage, the use standard is not met. So we're reviewing it as a conditional use. That's how it comes to you. Staff supports this conditional use because it is strongly supported in the base area by both the community plan and the mountain area master plan. And commercial activation is achieved through the restaurant frontage, outdoor dining, and streetscape improvements. The site's steep grade and kind of short Ski Times Square frontage makes this, somewhat constrained site location. And the G2 zone district expressly supports design flexibility, creativity, and pedestrian-oriented development. So these improvements activate that space. So that's a summary of our conditional use support. Regarding parking, the uses, their square footage, the number of units, 23 spaces are required to support those uses. 34 spaces are proposed in 2 buildings on the lowest floor, so the standard's met. And then regarding site development, there's 4 major variances requested to the retaining wall, massing, and roof form standards. So I'll go through them each now. The applicant did a great job summarizing. I'll kind of more focus on staff's analysis. So the first variance, this is to retaining wall standards in section 418, C3. The standard that's being varied requires, or that's proposed to be varied, of course. It requires retaining walls over 6 feet to be stepped into segments of no more than 6 feet each with a 3-foot horizontal offset. So up a little and over a little, up a little and over a little. With this application, the applicant's proposing retaining walls on the west side that are approximately 8.5 feet and a little more than 12 feet, about 4 inches. And then on the east side, a wall that's 13 feet, 11 inches that would not be stepped. Staff supports the variance for the west walls because they accommodate the significant grade change and the new stair, the new public stair connection between Ski Time Square and Burgess Creek Road. Varying the standard improves the application of other code purposes by supporting safe, efficient, and accessible multimodal circulation. For the east wall, which supports the amenity terrace between the buildings, staff finds the variance represents an acceptable alternative. The wall visually functions like a building wall. So we find the wall impacts are minimized in that location. And then varying the standard, it furthers the purpose of dense, flexible base area development and, like I said, minimizing those retaining wall impacts. Variance number 2 is to building massing standard for OE1C. This standard requires building walls that exceed 3 stories or 45 feet of unbroken height to include step backs of at least 8 feet between 12 and 45 feet above the finished grade. Several areas of the building, primarily at stair cores and the adjacent walls, do not meet the step back requirements, and those are shown in your packet in the plan set. Yes, there's one clarification in the report that the applicant did a nice job illustrating. It references 2 locations in the narrative, but there's a couple more locations. Staff's findings that they're based on the drawings in attachment C, and the applicant's justification, it remains valid. It's based on the same functional reasons, and the variations kind of occur at the same not the same places, because there are obviously different spaces on the building, but the justification is the same. Staff supporting the variance because the proposal achieves an acceptable alternative. It furthers both massing guidelines in section 440E, which we sometimes consider for major variances, as well as G2 zone district and base area design standard purpose statements. The portions of the building without step backs are stair cores, like I said, and the walls flanking them, and they provide egress, structural integrity. So these elements are integral to the building mass. We find that they're subordinate to the composition, and they don't alter the perceived height or scale of the building from public vantage points. So overall, the design's achieving the intent of the standard by visually breaking down the mass through materials, balcony placement, and step backs elsewhere, while still maintaining appropriate transitions in scale. So now on to variance number 3, and that is to roof form standards, 2 of them, 440 F1B and E. The standard requires that primary roofs be pitched between 612 and 1212, and that flat roofs not exceed 50% of the total roofed area. The lower Ski Time Square building, it has a flat roof as the primary roof. So that's the subject of the variance. Staff is supporting this variance because the proposal achieves an acceptable alternative by furthering both the roof form guideline 440 F5A, as well as the G2 and base area design standard purpose statements. Overall, The design, it provides appropriate pedestrian scale along Ski Time Square. It creates a clear transition in height between the two buildings, and it activates the public realm, consistent with the intent of the base area design standards. The last variance is to reform standards also. This standard, it requires all flat roofs to be enclosed by a parapet wall, no less than 42 inches. There's a few flat roofs that are not enclosed by a parapet wall. They're generally low secondary roofs, if you will. Staff supports the variance because the reduced parapets assist with snow mitigation and overall building performance, and the proposed roof design still meets the intent of the base area roof form guidelines. The variance also achieves an acceptable alternative by furthering guideline 440F5A, and that allows flat roofs on secondary building elements and snow catchment areas where appropriate. So that's what we're finding here. To kind of summarize the last two variances, the roof form variances, although it's not a specific approval criteria, I think it's worth noting that these are large, complex buildings. They're responding to significant grade changes across the site, providing appropriate roof variety, height transitions, snow management strategies on a site like this it's a challenging task, a design task, and a few areas evidenced in the variances fall outside of that strict roof form standard as a result. But overall, staff's finding the buildings incorporate pitched roofs and variation that meet the overall intent of the roof form standards. So it's a little bit zoomed out, a little more philosophical for you, but for your consideration nonetheless. Regarding public comment, none has been received in support of or opposition to the proposal. And overall, for staff's part, we're recommending approval with conditions. We find that there is robust direction in the CDC, the community plan that was recently adopted, that document was used for analysis of this project, but the previous community area plan that it replaced also included similar direction. And of course, the Mountain Area Master Plan. There's a lot of robust direction that supports this project in that document as well. So like I said, we're recommending approval. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Any questions from commissioners?
Yeah, a question for the applicant. It's my understanding that all of the trash management and disposal and deliveries will be on Ski Time Square?
No,
Okay,
it's been changed.
it's been changed.
That was presented as part of the CDP a
Right.
few years ago. So the lower building will handle the lower building only, which is basically 2 small residential units and the restaurant. All the trash from the upper building will go out through Burgess Creek.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll go for staff or the applicant, I don't know. You did show a slide showing the Burgess Creek residential units on the pedestrian active frontage. I had trouble locating if they were actual residential units or if it was just the owner services that were on the frontage along Ski Time Square, if any. Could you point those out?
You talking about the lower building now?
I guess that would be the lower building, yes.
There's no unit on the ground floor. There's a lobby.
It's just
The residents to go
the
through.
amenities, couple spaces there.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't tell from staff report exactly what was on Ski
Okay.
Time Square. And that's fine.
Anything else?
No.
I don't think so. Any other questions? Nope. I don't have any either. We have no public here. Is there any public online that would like to make public comment on this agenda item? I think I see one hand raised. If there are others, please raise your hand as well, and I'll call on you. Bill, if you'd like to unmute yourself and state your name and address and give us your public comment.
Bill Jamison, Burgess Creek Road. I'd like to address a couple of things that staff totally blew over, and that's the south side of this building. There's 4 sides to a building, not 3. It totally misses the massing on the south side, the step backs, Variance requested is for structural needs. That's only because the applicant wants to increase saleable footage. Those staircases can be internal. There should be that 8-foot setback on the south side. There's no justification provided, valid justification for not providing a setback. That setback applies to all 4 sides of the building, and the south side is just as visible to others as the other 3. Let's talk about shadowing. Nobody talked about shadowing of Burgess Creek Road. It's a joke putting this structure up there. You put a 6-plex up a couple lots above, allowed 2 curb cuts. People are backing out into that road. They're parking on the sidewalks. The applicant there put ballards essentially at the edge of the pavement. The city finally made them cut them down before the snowplows hit them. Let's talk about the sidewalk along Burgess Creek Road. It should go lot line to lot line. It should be required to be snow melted because that sidewalk is intended to be used during all 4 seasons. It's not going to be kept clear unless it is snow melted because the plow from Burgess Creek Road is going to dump their snow right on it. So the south side has been an afterthought at best. Let's talk about G2. G2 was never intended for Burgess Creek Road. Burgess Creek Road is not the base area. It happens to back into it. But the idea that you're putting all this traffic and massing on Burgess Creek Road isn't consistent with the overall base area plan because Burgess Creek isn't part of the base area. So I think you need to seriously look at that. Mass. Nobody talked about the mass that this is affecting the residents on the south side of Burgess Creek Road. It's going to be totally blocking all those people. Doesn't affect me personally because I'm on Upper Burgess Creek Road, but I got to drive past this thing and it's going to be a skating rink. So let's talk about how they're going to mitigate the shadowing and the idea that shadowing isn't a valid criteria. I don't buy it because you're creating the hazard by approving this mass. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I urge you to deny the plan as presented.
Is there any other public comment on this agenda item? I don't see any hands raised online, but if there are any. Any final follow-up for us?
The only thing I'd like to add is that the parcel of land, our site sort of, the narrowest part of the site is what fronts Ski Time Square. And then it goes up and it flares a bit. That piece of land that sort of comes slightly in front of our building from the east, I'm sorry. Something will be built there.
And any final follow-up from staff, from Kelly?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Final questions from commissioners? Then I'll close our public portion and come to commissioners for discussion and a motion. Not all at once, please.
That site needs to be developed in my mind. I think it wants to be developed, should have been developed a long time ago. I don't know, I don't understand actually the shadowing issue that has been brought up twice now. And what really is our criteria for evaluating or not evaluating it? And I'm guessing that we don't have criteria for evaluating that. I do like the fact that they're providing access, the stair access from Ski Time Square, because I think that is very much needed. And that should be a benefit.
Any other discussion? The only thing I didn't like about the stairs, as long as you just brought that up, was that they start through the driveway access point. I do like them in general. I understand the reasoning for the retaining walls that incorporate them, how they'll get down through and how they're kind of creating the shortest linear path to get through the property, which is great. But the fact that they have to cross that driveway opening, like garage opening, it's not garage, I respect, but like, it's still a door type. I struggled on whether or not that was mitigated properly or whether that was going to create a safety concern. I ended up making my peace with it, but it stood out in my mind anyway. So I'll bring it to you all as well. That's all I meant to add to his thing. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I would agree with one of the public comments that we just received, that Burgess Creek Road was not really is not the base area, and not having commercial ground pedestrian frontage usage I'm okay with that. And we had a earlier application that did the same thing. So I agree that's okay. And it seems like the pedestrian active frontage on the Ski Time Square is minimal. I mean, we kind of have to have some access for the people to leave the building. I wanted a better word I couldn't come up with at the moment. So I'm kind of okay with that. The flat roof on the front building, I think I at least learned at the last ones, we're talking about the effect on the pedestrian. And the fact that that lower building is pushed forward, I think really reduces the pedestrian effect of the tall building. It's not taller than it's supposed to be, but it is tall. But the building is within the height limits of the G2, which is what we say we want. We want as much density and mass as we can get in the G2 and all around the base area. Missing step backs, they seem pretty minimal when you look at the facade. I mean, there's a fair amount of articulation. And as I said, that the lower building does a lot to create a huge step back. Even if we want to realistically or legally, it's two different buildings. To the pedestrian, at least it's going to be one big building. And there is that step back, which pushes the mass away from the sidewalk and the street itself. The parapets and the roof issues, there's a lot going on that roof. I don't think anyone will say, oh, there's too many flat roofs and there's no parapets covering the flat roofs, because A, they're above it where anybody's going to see them. And there's already a lot of detail going on, I think, with the roof that mitigates the need for more parapets, or especially the roof line on the lower building, which I think can help open up view sheds for adjacent uses. Those are the things that kind of stood out in my review.
It's great. I would agree with you, especially on your point about how the pedestrian looks at it all as one. And when we're trying to create an intent, at least in our code right now, about primary roof forms versus secondary, I know that technically staff and the applicant needed to consider that as a flat roof, the amenity space, but it behaves as a functional patio at the bottom of the tall building, much more than it behaves as a roof form that is theoretically taken away from other primary roof form shapes. I completely see that as an acceptable alternative easily. But that's kind of my justification on that, just to kind of voice it. Any other discussion?
I'm not going to repeat all of you guys. I agree with everything that's been said so far.
Yeah, same. And I had so few questions, honestly, because I think that both staff and applicant went through item by item really well, kind of describing the process, where they came from, why the variances exist, how they found acceptable criteria or alternative, depending on if it was staff or the applicant talking. I'm out of words. Visual representation that the applicant showed us in order to kind of walk us through how they developed it, where the variances came from, how they're minimized or mitigated. Just minimize any questions, I think we needed to ask, if I'm speaking for more than just myself, but I think that made it a really easy process for us tonight.
Like I say, I'm really glad that all the trash disposal is not going to be on Ski Town Square.
Should be better. Yeah, just for the record, I do agree with you. Rich, I think you voiced it the best on the conditional use, especially up at Burgess Creek. We talked about that the other day, and each project is its own, but it's the same concept. I think that forcing them to provide a commercial use up on that space, I think would not benefit anybody. So I think it's very much an acceptable proposal. And then similarly down on the main, doesn't matter what I think is silly, but I mean, they're not going to scale walls in order to get to the multifamily portion of this building. We have to have some kind of a lobby entrance for multifamily. The fact that that's a conditional use, the way our code is written right now, is fine and therefore acceptable to create an entrance for that. Rich, I'm with you though. I initially struggled with the vertical height component of a couple of those walls. But the reason I stand with you is because I ended up at your reasoning at the end of the day. I think it's very minimized. I like the way you use the word articulated on how the building kind of made up for or kind of minimized the impact that those walls would have to the surrounding public. And so I think those are acceptable alternatives as well. Anybody else have anything to add, or anybody want to make a motion?
Motion to approve 2025-0234, 5 conditions.
Right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second. Chance.
Appreciate that.
That was it. Any final discussion? Then I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Great, that passes 4-0. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
We will jump into now agenda item number 3 this evening. This is PL 2025-0315. This is 4th Street Townhomes Development Plan. Is the applicant here for presentation?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Tom Davis, project architect and principal at ESA Architecture, and I'm here representing Big Pow LLC. I think I want to share before we start that clock.
Zoom meeting?
I am. Yep. Give me a second here.
Should be able to share your screen.
Is it not giving you permissions?
Leave. It should probably be coming up here in a second.
You want a pointer?
Potentially. Might help. All right. Well, good evening. I've already introduced myself, but I don't know if I need to for public record as part of the presentation.
You already have. That's great.
Okay. So I'm back here with a new development plan for 4th Street. We met back in last year at some point, or maybe earlier this year. And we're hoping that you'll like our new and improved design here. So it still is a townhome project, and the only major difference as far as what we're presenting as far as building stock is concerned is formerly we had 7 units on the site, townhome units, and now we have 6 townhome units. As we had gone over with our previous application, this is a very unique site because it finds itself entirely surrounded by a PUD, and it is adjacent to the commercial Old Town Zone District, yet it is CY2 commercial Yampa zoned. I think everybody knows where this is, but it's on 4th Street. So it's interesting to note that we did get through City Council, and our current development plan was approved back in May. So theoretically, we could move forward with our approved design. However, we feel this design is better, and we now have planning support as we addressed many of the concerns that were brought in our first proposal. As you can see with the plan here on the left is the approved development plan. On the right is our new development plan. So essentially what we have done is taken 1 unit out of the center and rotated the units to capture some better views, activate pedestrian access on 4th Street, and also, and importantly, provide some safer access through the alleyway, as that is quite a busy alleyway. One of the questions might be, well, why do we go through all this trouble to get a development plan only to change it? And it's been a combination of factors, market value, of course, from our clients. But the reality, when we initially started designing this townhome project, we were responding to the development plan that was under review and had been approved and had started construction. Subsequent to that, and throughout the summer, the construction has commenced, and our clients were not thinking that they could sell with the views that were oriented towards this structure, as it was built a little different than they were anticipating. That's just kind of a backstory. So the planning staff is recommending us for approval, and I'm not going to steal the thunder from Kelly's presentation, but really the main difference, there was kind of the perfect storm formerly with the conditional use for residential in the pedestrian active street frontage. We're still asking for that conditional approval because this is a townhome project, but we're engaging 4th Street and enhancing the pedestrian active circulation zone. And staff has been favorable to our new design. As I had mentioned earlier, really one of the other main concerns, aside from the site considerations of the adjacent structure, was how busy that alleyway was. I've grown up in this town, and I remember back when this site was a trailer home park, and ever since I've been in this town, 4th Street, this alleyway has been a busy bypass, essentially, to the Winter Sports Club and anybody that wants to avoid that traffic light that's at 5th Street. So people are zooming all the time on this alleyway, and we were thinking that it was not safe to pull out of a garage directly onto the alleyway. So we've created this more of a courtyard concept. Also of note is our pedestrian access along 4th Street. And we are providing some benches along the way. You can see them pretty clear in the renderings, but we're directly engaging 4th Street for our point of access. The conditional use and potentially the conversation comes back to this tonight, and would love to answer any questions you have on this. But Down Street, downtown Steamboat, Main Street has endorsed us, recognizing that when you get east of 5th Avenue, there should be some flexibility in zoning to allow different uses, one of which should be or could be residential use in the pedestrian active street frontage. We still have variances associated with this project. One of the variances, and a lot of these variances stem from the simple fact that we are in the CY2 zone district. So along Yampa Street, a lot of this criteria makes a lot of sense. Along 4th Street, it becomes more challenging to accommodate. The first variance is the full width of the front building facade shall be built to the minimum front setback. There's no possible way that we can do this in the simple sense that there is a pedestrian access easement as well as a utility easement that goes a full 26 feet into the property. So we are scooting the building as close as we can to that access and utility easement, which also coincidentally gets close to the front CY2 second story setback that's allowed as far as building massing is concerned. Variance number 2 is that the primary building entrances shall face Yampa Street. That's really difficult to accommodate when we're not on Yampa Street. But formerly, with our development plan that has been approved, our entrances were inboard and were not facing 4th Street. Arguably, half of our new design is not facing 4th Street, but half of the townhomes are facing. I don't know if, okay, that just blinked off. So we think we are honoring the intent of the code by pivoting our buildings. Variance number 3, buildings shall fill the full width of the lot. This makes a lot of sense in a very urban context when you want, you don't want negative spaces between buildings and you have a continuous street frontage. However, in this application, it doesn't make as much sense, as well as the need to not only accommodate for runoff from our driveway, our stormwater management and electrical access, but probably and most importantly is along the interior property line based on International Building Code. You can't have any windows until you're 5 feet away from the property line. So from that perspective, we are as far as we can possibly be from a building code perspective to the setback. That's different at the alleyway, and our building is butted up to the 0 lot line at the alleyway because that fire safe distance is not required in an alleyway because nobody could ever build there per the building code. Variance number 4, ground floor height shall be between 12 and 15 feet, and display windows at the street level shall appear similar in height to those seen traditionally. This criteria is predicated on a commercial use, so in a lot of ways it's tethered to our conditional request for residences at the ground level. Theoretically, you could make the buildings taller to meet the height ground floor condition, but then it becomes challenging to have 3 stories for the structure, as well as an unnecessary change of grade from the ground level to the second story. But I think most importantly associated with this variance and our justification is that really you have to look at the surrounding context, because this is written under the assumption that we're on Yampa Street and the continuation of the storefront makes sense in that ground level as a datum, as it is a continuous streetscape. We are on an island, CY2 in a PUD, so our contextual cues really come from the adjacent residential structures around us. Sorry, there's little windows in the way. Variance 5 is transparent glazing, including glazed doors, shall be provided as follows. There's a lot of glazing requirements, but I think the intent of this is that there's more glazing at the street level and less as you go above in a traditional commercial sense. Our project arguably meets that code along 4th Street, and glazing is tricky to meet the requirements when you're navigating function as it crashes into form. Bathrooms, laundry rooms, things of that nature. We've done everything that we can to bring our glazing percentage as high as possible. So that's kind of this new project in a nutshell. I think everything that we've done is really trying to come back to this notion of vitality and how do we create vitality in downtown. And there was a lot of discussion around that in our last meeting, some disconnect between what vitality is. Is it a coffee shop at the ground floor, or is it bringing pedestrians through the area? And from our perspective, vitality is at its very core is the people that animate spaces. We are bringing more people into downtown. We are increasing and making a connection point between the Yampa River corridor, core path, multimodal path, as well as to Lincoln Avenue, connecting that with an enhanced streetscape and sidewalk, as well as nice landscaping features. So we feel our conditional approval for residential at the ground floor is justifiable and brings vitality to downtown, has been supported by planning staff as well as Main Street Steamboat. So I'm around this evening for questions, and I'm just going to leave it with that, unless I guess we have a little more time. Don't want to leave it on the table, Ryan.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll let you know if we have any questions. Kelly, do you have a staff presentation as well?
I do. Thank you. Kelly Douglas, senior planner. The subject site, it's 0.29 acres. It's undeveloped. It's located on the southeast corner of 4th Street and the alley south of Lincoln Avenue. Zone CY2, and it's bordered by CO Zones properties to the north and the Riverview PUD to the east, west, and south. The site, it has a limited frontage along 4th Street, and its long dimension runs along the alley, parallel to the alley, where access is provided. Although the lot is rectangular, which is not unique, that's kind of ideal, really, that's what the standards want. Its orientation and context are unique. That's what makes it unique. It sits at a transition point between the traditional downtown block pattern, where lots run from Lincoln Avenue to the alley on both sides, and the different orientation of the Riverview PUD to the south. So those kind of come together right at this property. So that's, because of that, the site functions as a transitional property between that commercial core and the adjacent residential development. As background, previous development plan was for a 7-unit townhome project that was approved earlier in 2025. It had a conditional use to allow multiple family residential within the pedestrian active building frontage, and there were 7 variances to CY2 design standards. I think we covered them well, the applicant covered them, so I'll leave that out. It's more for context than anything to do with really this proposal, because of course they all stand on their own. But at that time, staff recommended denial. Planning Commission had a split vote recommending denial, and ultimately City Council approved the project. But as Tom mentioned, they are back with a refined design, and this application proposes a 6-unit multiple family residential development in 2 townhome buildings. The project maintains alley access for vehicles, but it improves the pedestrian orientation by providing 3 primary entrances off of 4th Street. So that's a big change. Site improvements include a widened sidewalk, landscaping, entrances oriented to 4th Street again that strengthen the connection between kind of these zones. The commercial, CO commercial, not on this site, this site, and then the Riverview neighborhood. As a conditional use is required to allow multiple family residential use within the pedestrian active building frontage on 4th Street. The community plan and the downtown plan support adding housing downtown, improving the pedestrian realm, and reinforcing the transitional role of 4th Street between the commercial core and the nearby residential areas. So staff finds the proposed use is consistent with the applicable plans, that it's compatible with the CY2 zone district, and it's not anticipated to create any negative impacts. So we're supporting that conditional use. There are 5 variances included with this application. They're all to the CY2 design standards. So I'll go through each one of them now. And again, I'll focus on staff's analysis on this one. The applicant did a good job of summarizing their justifications. So variance number 1 is to building placement standards. I'll spare you the reference. I'll tell you what the standard is. It's focused on streetscape character and the look and feel of downtown development rather than an Article 2 dimensional standard. So where it's located tells us something about what it's for. This standard, it requires that the full width of the front facade be built to the minimum front setback. The applicant is proposing a 28 to 31 foot setback to allow a widened sidewalk, landscaping, seating. Staff supports this variance because the increased setback still creates a defined street frontage and improves pedestrian experience, comfort along the 4th Street frontage. The alternative it enhances the public realm and it meets the downtown plan's direction for high quality pedestrian spaces. It also it maintains visual continuity with the neighboring Riverview building. They're about the same, they're kind of set back the same, I guess, if you will. They line up, or they would line up if approved. So it appropriately responds to the context in staff's view. So all that's to say that we are supporting the variance and we find it to be an equal to acceptable alternative, meets the intent of the standard. Variance number 2 is to building orientation standard 443C1B. This standard requires primary building entrances to face Yampa Street, but as we know, Yampa Street doesn't extend to this site. So in this context, orienting entrances to 4th Street is the only feasible way to achieve activation on the public street. This orientation, it maintains pedestrian visibility, reinforces the street-oriented development pattern. So we find that this represents an acceptable alternative, meets the intent of the standard, and it satisfies the criteria for both the practical difficulty, it just can't meet this standard, but also an equal to outcome. Variance number 3, this is a massing standard, and it requires buildings to fill the full width of the lot. So that would be the 4th Street frontage. The standard would have the building be the whole width of it. The building fills approximately 86% of the width. So it fills most of it, but there's a little bit left over. Staff supports this variance because the reduced width still establishes a continuous street frontage and a clear urban edge along 4th Street. The resulting form, it achieves the same streetscape envisioned by the standard and maintains an active relationship with the public realm. The design also furthers the CY2 zone district by accommodating new development that complements traditional rhythm and transitional scale between Lincoln and Riverview neighborhood again. So overall, it's an acceptable alternative that upholds the purpose of the CY2 zone district and the intent of the standard. I was going to say last, but it's not last. It's the fourth. It's the fourth variance, and it's also to building massing standards. This standard requires a 12 to 15-foot ground floor height with display windows similar to traditional storefront proportions. The applicant's proposing a 9-foot floor height. While the standard seems written for commercial storefronts, I think that's where most of our minds go, it does apply to all uses allowed in the CY2 zone district, which includes multiple family residential, which is allowed as a conditional use. So in this case, applying the commercial scale height requirements to a residential use wouldn't improve the pedestrian experience or streetscape quality necessarily. The proposed 9-foot height, it provides an appropriate residential scale. It still maintains a reasonable amount of transparency, articulation, and visible interest along 4th Street. And this variance, staff's finding to be consistent with CY2's purpose of supporting moderate intensity residential uses in a pedestrian-oriented environment. So similar to before, it's an acceptable alternative. It fulfills the intent of the standard, and it upholds the stated purposes of the CY2 zone district. And now we are at the last variance. It is variance number 5, and it's to our glazing and transparency standards. There's 3 of them. 30% ground floor transparency on public facing facades, 60% on Yampa Street facades, which, as we know, there is no Yampa Street here. So we're making sure we're treating all those standards the same. And 25% of upper floors. The proposal, it does not meet those percentages. And as I mentioned, strict application of the Yampa specific standard cannot be met here. So that is that. We support the variance though, because the design meets the intent of the glazing standards through the guidelines, which encourage clear glazing on the ground floor of numbered streets and allow proportionally less glazing on upper floors. The window pattern provides an appropriate residential expression while still promoting visibility and activity and pedestrian-friendly activity along the 4th Street frontage. This variance, staff is also finding consistent with CUI's purpose of accommodating this moderate intensity residential development, supporting an active walkable downtown area. And yeah, that this one also fulfills the intent of the standards and upholds the purpose of the CY2 zone district and the design standards. Regarding public comment, none has been received in support of or opposition to the proposal. Overall, the design strengthens the pedestrian orientation along 4th Street, provides appropriate residential transition between commercial and residential, and we find that the applicable development plan, conditional use, and major variance criteria for approval are met. Also consistent with the downtown plan direction, and we've utilized the new community plan in this, in the analysis of this project, but kind of similar to the last one. There's nothing in here that I don't think the old plan contradicts any of the findings here. So yeah, we are recommending approval with conditions. I hope I mentioned that. And of course, we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Any questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I guess the reality here, and this is for Kelly, is that this project that we had approved a while ago is now under construction. And is this a substantive change that, from that plan? It is, obviously. And is that why they're here?
The applicant is here on their own volition. This change in the design is completely the applicant's choice. The modifications that they've made between this proposal that you're looking at and the one before, it hasn't been constructed. It was just approved. So there's no building permit or anything related to the old previous approval. I don't want to speak for the applicant. They can obviously speak for themselves, but I think they've taken some of the direction that they heard at this hearing and city council, and that might have informed some of the changes. But in either case, staff reviews this. I've provided context because I feel like it's natural to ask that question, and we try to anticipate the questions that we can from commissioners and the public, city council. But that's not to insinuate that they, or suggest in any way that the analysis of that project impacts the analysis of this project. This project stands on its own. It's gone through its own analysis. It's completely independent. But yeah, it's been completely their choice.
Okay.
Come back with a new proposal.
Well, I thought I was under the impression that this was actually under construction. It is not. Is that true?
It is not, no.
Okay.
We endeavored on construction documents for the previous design,
Okay.
but we haven't broken ground.
Okay. Thank you.
Apologies.
Philosophically and theoretically. And this is because of what came up the other day in our other discussion. Had they broken ground and then they decided to change the design, would this represent a substantive change? And they would be required to come to the commission?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
For staff, on the downtown area plan, the downtown plan, it does talk about increased commercialization from 5th through 10th. Do we envision no new commercial from 3rd and 4th and 11th and 12th streets in our commercial zones?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. I'm going to jump to a different topic because I can. Glazing, staff supports it, even though there's, I believe it was 3 facades that had only 10% glazing. I don't understand how that meets the goal of 30%. I can understand I guess it would be the west-facing facade that's against the larger building that has probably close to a 0 lot line build. But both 4th Street and the alley are pretty visible locations, and I wonder why higher glazing would not be warranted.
We're responding to the proposal before us, what they proposed, and we find that it furthers a couple of the guidelines. So that's our support, and we find that it also, the purpose of the CY2 zone district supports it by, like I was saying, accommodating this moderate intensity residential use. So that's staff support, but of course, the finding is yours to make, whether to disagree with that.
That's all for now.
Yeah, I may have asked this question from the first time around. Why is this a CY zone?
This was rezoned to CY2 with the last proposal in May. It was part of the package. This property was subdivided, it was rezoned, and there was a development plan. All 3 of them came together. And now I'm kind of summarizing the findings of that hearing for you, the zone map amendment. What we found at that time, we as in staff and this group and city council, we all agreed that there's actually no perfect fit for this property. In an ideal world, if we go back in time, probably should have been part of Riverview, but we can't go back in time. And it doesn't work with CO. It's not a CO property in spirit. It doesn't front on Lincoln. We kind of, in that hearing, we all arrived at the conclusion that there would probably be a variance to whatever standards we attach to this property, whatever it's zoned. Probably wouldn't work perfectly because it is weird. It is not part of CO. Yampa doesn't come through. So it's a little bit in a no man's land, and our analysis, the future land use map of the old community area plan, all of those things kind of amounted to CY2 being the closest best fit. So I think there's always been some acknowledgement that all of the standards of this zone district would not work for this site simply because it's not on Yampa. And then there's a few that I think are related to the use, like the ground floor ceiling height, for example. That's related directly to the multiple family project that it is. So it's not a perfect fit, but I don't think there is a perfect fit.
Okay, thank you.
A question for the applicant. about going back to glazing. Can you describe how you measured the glazing area and the wall area?
Yeah, typically what we do is in our software, we overlay, one area, take the measurement of it, and then have basically the glazing. So you look over both the doors, anywhere there's glass, overlay squares that essentially gives us the calculations.
Specifically, what were you measuring to and from on wall area? and on the glazing?
Exterior faces of walls. Actually, if we could pull up, I think we could present, because we have our glazing calculations. I believe they're,
The numbers, but didn't see any graphics of what you were actually measuring. And bear with me, I promise there's a point to this, but I'm just curious. I don't want to be way off base before I continue my questions.
sure, no. If we didn't represent it graphically, we typically do that. And we'd be happy to share the glazing percentages with you. As far as, and I believe in these documents, I thought we had a sheet that was the glazing percentage. I know in a lot of other projects we have it broken out very graphically with overlays.
Rich thinks that he remembers it. Yeah, I saw that chart. So the reason I'm asking is because, this is scaling, so, imperfect, but your percentages, percentages are really low compared to what I was scaling. I think okay, I'll read the part of the CDC that I'm talking about. In the definitions of everything, the transparency area shall include the glass and the frame. So I wasn't sure if you were including the frame or just the glass panes. And then wall area is where I was thinking maybe a lot of this was coming from. The wall area is measured from the finished elevation of each floor to the ceiling above, not just the exterior facade. So it's a lot smaller wall area than if you just draw a line around the building. And I think, like, from my scaling, because it looked like there were a lot more windows than the percentages you're showing. So I just was curious. And I think that the variance isn't as extreme as it looks in that chart. That's the reason I mention it. I think you're actually better off but it's hard to really.
We'll have to go back and
Find that.
review. Yeah, absolutely. There's a chance that those calculations are lower, as I wasn't the one that drafted these plans, but my name is associated with them, so
Sure.
I should double check the percentages.
Although Kelly, did you do that as part of the DRT process? Can you verify any of their numbers?
We defer to Tom to make the final.
And ultimately, looking at just using, and I understand with planning and dimensional standards, we always, numbers mean everything. But conceptually, 60% at the ground level as it faces the street, if you just look at the front, and I don't know if I'm sharing, I could share that. We're not at 60%.
Sure, yeah. I think the upper levels were the ones that are pretty gosh dang close to 25, if not well over in some cases.
Absolutely. And I know formerly in the previous design, we enhanced the glazing percentages by bringing a lot of glass to the garage doors as they were on the alleyway. But now it's the side of the garage along the alleyway.
All right, any other questions? Kelly, I had one for you. You mentioned in your staff analysis, trying to just understand where you were coming from, your staff analysis of the conditional use for multifamily. You say the downtown plan identifies side streets as appropriate locations for infill housing that transitions between commercial core and adjacent neighborhoods. Which adjacent neighborhood are you referring to?
Riverview.
Riverview is a mixed-use development, not a neighborhood.
Okay, noted.
That was what you were referring to, though.
Yeah, the vicinity. It's a residential area. It's directly next to and across from multiple family development. I understand your point. The Riverview PDD is mixed use overall. It's more of a horizontal mix of uses rather than vertical. And I think it's appropriate to characterize that as a neighborhood. There is commercial development, residential development surrounding it. We're on two sides. It's very prominent, our most closest neighbors, I guess. So that's where we're coming from, but I hear you.
That was the only question I had for staff or the applicant. Any other questions?
I have like a point of curiosity. The first two variances feel like they would have been hardship, like a hardship justification, because there is no Yampa Street to satisfy one, and there's a big easement across the front of the lot line, so you can't build to the front. I don't remember if it was setback or property line, but you can't build as far forward towards the front lot line as the code wants you to. And I'm just curious why those were justified as acceptable alternatives instead of hardships.
The first one was an acceptable alternative, and that's just kind of like where we landed on it. You could certainly make a different finding. That's absolutely your purview. The second variance you mentioned, we actually did choose both hardship and acceptable alternatives. Sometimes we do that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Do we have any public comment for this agenda item? We don't have any in person. Are there any online? You can raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, I'll first come back to the applicant. Do you have any final follow-up for us?
I think my only conclusion or final statement would be with the new code, community plan is really predicated. I read through it over the weekend. It was joyful reading. And a lot of the new code is to really encourage density in our downtown and development of infill lots. This lot is currently a parking lot in a very busy alleyway. It finds itself in no man's land as the CY2 zone district because that seemed to be the closest fit. From that, pretty much every variance has sprung forward. We've done everything in our power to honor the code, bring pedestrian activity through our site, and connect the Yampa core to downtown. So from our perspective, we are enhancing the community in what is currently an infill lot, and we feel we're honoring the code.
Great, thank you. Any final comments from staff
Nothing to add. Thank you.
and final questions? I'll close our public portion and come to commissioners for discussion and a motion.
I have a vague recollection of this project. And I think it was.
It wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago, but I'm trying to remember if there were four of us that had the split vote last time.
Oh. I think it was a full 8. So
Was it? Okay, okay.
I think you're right.
I'm supportive of this. The whole CY zoning, now I recall that we zoned it that way. And that is what causes a lot of these variances. I think having the access from 4th Street is better than having it from, any place else. There is some activation. And I do remember a conversation about, couldn't we just have like a coffee shop or something on 4th Street to provide some commercial activation? And I'm not sure that that's applicable. I mean, that's an alley back there, guy. The glazing, I don't have that much of a problem with the glazing issue. So from that standpoint, I'm supportive. I'd like to see that lot be developed into something, honestly.
Other discussion?
I got.
I think the first couple of variances are just, pretty straightforward and easy. They're impossible to meet without a variance. The lot width, filling the width of the lot variance number 3 is almost the same thing because you can't fill the lot width while providing the required glazing. So you have to choose one or the other. So I have no problem with that. The ground floor height, I've said it a lot of times at this point, that I think it's a variance we should expect if we're allowing the conditional use of residential in a commercial zone, which I'm supportive of in this case and was last time as well. The glazing one, I wish that I knew that we had the right calculations, because I truly do think that it's a much smaller variance than it looks like. But even so, I'm totally supportive of that variance because it looks, there's quite a few windows on the upper floors. The one spot that I would have loved to see more windows is right on the street level, but at the same time, that just creates a fishbowl that is kind of awkward for everyone, the people inside, the people outside. So I'm perfectly fine with it as it sits. Yeah, that's all I got.
I'm struggling with this. It's a beautiful project. It looks great. It's an infill project. That's great. I always struggle with not getting our commercial. Claiming the zoning problem, I don't buy that. It's either CY or it's CO. Or if they didn't like either of those zone districts, they could have come and asked for a PUD. So yes, it's not on Yampa Street, but the vision of Yampa, of the CY zone district, is not just Yampa. It's an area. It's an area of X amount of commercial and whatever that X number is, and residential, and being pedestrian friendly, very similar to CO, except with a little less, with less intensity. So those discussions, except for not being able to face Yampa Street, any other challenge of the CY zone district goes with the property, period. No other, it doesn't fit, doesn't work for me. Yes, I understand that the downtown plan does diminish the importance of commercial east of 4th Street or south, whichever direction that is at that point. It doesn't eliminate it, and get that connection. The mountain plan, the downtown area plan does talk about commercial and having the experiential commercial experience, to be able to touch things, to help divert us from our online commercial, online buying experience. It specifically talks about that in the downtown plan, and this is an important element. So I'm a little leery about this, about no commercial. And then the glazing. The glazing is not only about a visual impact to the pedestrian, it's also about providing light to the residents and occupants inside it. And 10% on I think it was at least 50% of the walls seems pretty small to me. Whether that's an accurate calculation or not, I assume it's the calculation that the city has created. Or at least I assume, and I assume staff has double-checked the applicant's numbers. So the lack of glazing is a little bit of an issue for me, even though it looks nice when we see it. They could have put zero glazing on the west-facing facade that's right against the other PUD building, and increased it on the alleyway, and 4th Street would have made me happier. And I'm not really sure if my concerns, where they fall on how it's going to affect my vote. But these are things I worry about all the time, and especially in the very areas that are intended to be commercially orientated. It's commercial Yampa, not mixed use Yampa, not residential Yampa, commercial Yampa, right next to commercial Old Town.
I'll join. I like the things you just brought up. Those are my concerns as well. What I think is interesting, and I think maybe, Kelly, I'll give you the credit for what I think is the intent that's maybe being met within the glazing, is that if you're struggling to determine if it has enough glazing, it looks like it ought to have more, then one, it was measured wrong. That could be, and that's actually a big problem. We shouldn't be looking at things that are measured and indicated wrong. But maybe more correctly, the design was successful in mitigating how little glazing there is and creating a building that looks like it has a lot of architectural interest and is still creating that interest where it looks like the facade, each facade has more glazing to it. So it might just be an architectural success rather than a graphical error. Maybe it's both. It's hard to say. But I think that the building was designed really well, and I'm tending to give a lot of credit to that being the visual success of it, even though they're not providing enough glazing. The other variances, I think you guys already spoke to really well, but I think that each one, if we start with the fact that we've got a conditional use that's acceptable, that is multifamily only on this project. I like how they've changed this project. I think that that accessing one location along the alley and coming in before they're trying to get in or out of garages, which are a little bit more of a tricky situation than actually just turning off the alley into the courtyard, driveway, whatever we want to call that. Is very successful. I think that's a great improvement from what they had before. The orientation towards 4th Street is a great improvement. As you already mentioned, Kelly, the building width versus being able to mitigate some of these other issues as well. I think that is a very justifiable analysis or acceptable alternative. And especially with this type of townhome style construction where the garage and residential are on the ground floor as a part of the unit makes it non-redevelopable. And therefore the ground floor height makes sense within this specific type of residential construction. I think all the variances are working really well. The problem is, as I felt months ago when this came before, I think that Rich, to your point, the conditional use is still a big problem for me, as it was before, not providing any commercial use whatsoever in this area, whether it's supporting, if you want to call it an adjacent neighborhood, the commercial aspect supporting that adjacent neighborhood, or whether it's just a continuation of what is downtown, which is our commercial core emphasis, and not even providing any. Whichever way you look at it, I have a major problem with that. So everything else, the design itself, I'm just summarizing my long speech, the design itself, how they're doing their 5 variances, very successful. I just still think this property is meant to have a commercial aspect, especially along 4th. And I can't support the conditional use just from what I think that how I interpret the downtown plan requirements for us. Any other discussion or anybody want to make a motion?
I'll reiterate what Brian said. This is a better plan than the one we had before. And I know we split votes on it last time, and City Council approved it. So I'll make the motion to approve PL 2025-0315 and the 4 conditions associated with it.
I'll second.
Any final discussion? Okay.
Well, I was just going to say that I'm pretty sure we need to, and I don't think it'll change anything, but just for the record, that we are approving or denying this application based on its own merits, not based on any previous version, whether it's better or worse than a previous application.
Or a previous vote by council.
Or a previous vote. Exactly. That's all.
All right, I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
No.
No?
Aye.
Okay, that motion fails. So that gets fun for us. And I'll open up to the applicant. If you guys would like to see us table this until we have more, no, I'm okay right now. until we have more, or would you like us to just fail the motion because we can't get to a successful one? I was trying to say more commissioners here at a future date.
It's my understanding a tie vote goes as basically a no vote. And Kelly,
Right, so that motion failed.
Yeah.
We don't have a no
like,
vote, we
like
have
you
that
don't
motion.
have a vote, not like a no.
We don't have a yes vote, we don't have a no vote.
Yes, a neutral vote.
We
Like,
still have an open meeting where we could make a new one to vote against. And then if we can't come to one, then we just won't have a successful vote and that'll default to no. So, but we could postpone this until you have more.
I'd like some more clarification because I was under the impression that if it was tied, that it basically is a neutral, like there's no findings out of the night. Not that, and I don't know if that's.
Permission to, I have some, I think, information that's material.
I'll hear it.
Thanks. I actually checked in with the legal department ahead of this hearing to understand what would happen if Planning Commission had a split vote for a recommendation item. I checked with Dan Foote, the city attorney. He informed me that for recommendation items, when Planning Commission has a split recommendation, it goes forward with that split recommendation. So council would receive a recommendation that's 2-2, is how I understand it from our legal department.
So if that is indeed the final solution on that one, we would like to move forward with a split decision.
Okay.
If that's what you're asking.
That's fine, we can go with
And
that.
if that's what we can do.
Yes, I understand that's the appropriate procedure from our legal department.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Great, no problem. Thanks, Tom. Then we will have a split decision and we have voted 2-2. So thanks for your time tonight.
With that.
Let's take a quick 10-minute break. think we're back and running. So we'll jump into our agenda item number 4. This is PL 2025-0282, EV charging CDC text amendment. Kelly, when you're ready to tell us all about it.
Yes. Okay. Kelly Douglas, Senior Planner, again. I'm excited to bring you this item tonight. This is a CDC text amendment that proposes to update our code to align with Colorado House Bill 24-1173 and the Colorado EV charging model land use code. The House bill, which I will not repeat over and over again for all of our sanity, it requires cities of our size to either adopt the model code, adopt equivalent standards, or to formally opt out. The approach we're taking is to adopt standards that are consistent with the model code while tailoring them to fit our CDC's structure and formatting. The overall goal is to create clear definitions, a predictable standards, and a consistent permitting process for EV charging, both principal use and accessory uses. With this amendment, we introduced 2 new EV charging uses in Article 3. EV charging centers as a principal use. These are the larger fast charging sites, kind of functionally somewhere in between a surface parking lot and a gas station or a fueling station. The changes we're proposing with these new uses, or with this new use, is by right in CC, CS, and industrial. So that's kind of consistent with the gas station part. And then conditional in MF, G, CO, CY, CK, CN, and then 3 of our TND transects that, of course, aren't anywhere in the city yet, but this is a forward-looking amendment, so we're going to look that far forward too. And then it's prohibited. These principal use EV charging centers would be prohibited in our lower density residential zone districts. The other use that is proposed to be added is an accessory use. That's the EV charging facilities. These can be level 1, level 2, or the fast charging stations, the DCFC, and are incidental to existing uses. They are proposed to be allowed by right in all zone districts and reviewed at the building permit stage when they meet the exemption criteria. Much of the amendment is just kind of clarifying how existing development standards apply to EV charging and adding targeted exemptions language where it makes sense. So I will outline those sections of the code in Article 4, the development standards that we're proposing to make changes to. So we'll start at the top with landscaping. And that will be the accessory charging facilities are exempt when the principal use isn't changing. And if any existing plantings are displaced, they just need to be replaced elsewhere on the lot in accordance with the landscaping standards. We know those are going to be changing soon. We are anticipating an update, but I don't think there'll be any problem with that here. This exemption will just make sure that any new plantings comply with that new section or whatever's in effect at the time. For screening, the requirement applies only to EV utility equipment. It only applies to level 2 and DCFC charging. So those type of stations, and only along the shared lot line, not around the entire installation. The language in this section also gives the director some ability to exempt screening when it isn't necessary. So there's a little bit of flexibility there. In the lighting section, intentionally, and that's from direction in the model code as well. In the lighting section, EV charging areas are identified as priority locations for higher illumination, support safety, visibility, so it's kind of a small change. The off-street parking section, it does a couple things. ADA requirements are clarified for charging spaces. All EV charging spaces count toward parking minimums. I think that's an important one for staff and also for anybody wanting to develop EV charging equipment. We're just trying to make it really clear what you do and don't have to do, what applies, how things count. So that's what this section's doing. And then lastly, and this comes straight from the model code as well, that there's a credit for van accessible EV charging spaces that are not reserved exclusively for disability. Those can count as 2 spaces. So that's a special little incentive that the state's requiring we include, and that's the section where it fits best. So that's where you're seeing it land in section 406. For snow storage, accessory charging facilities are exempt from snow storage standards when the principal use isn't changing. And any snow storage areas displaced by an installation must be relocated elsewhere in accordance with the requirements, the snow storage requirement standards, while still maintaining proper access and circulation. So it works pretty similar to landscaping. If there's something required, a tree, snow storage space, that you now want to put an accessory EV charging use, that's okay. We know that those areas are probably most likely to be impacted by these accessory EV charging uses that are kind of retrofitted, if you will, over time. It's the same. Please relocate in accordance with that section, and then you're good. So then we move on to, I think this is the performance standards section, section 411, and that adds a reference to NFPA and NESC clearance. It's utility requirements. It's probably a standard that was in a reference that was kind of missing in the first place. So that's sort of a cleanup and part of the model code. And that's a great addition in staff's opinion. And then finally, there's the clear vision setback section. And that it's just to add EV charging stations. They can't be in the clear vision setback triangle. So that's just kind of similarly a clarification. So folks know what can and cannot occur in certain areas, in certain setback areas. On the process side, accessory charging facilities are exempt from development review if they meet all the conditions that we kind of just walked through. So they move straight to building permit, and that's where they'll be reviewed. There's still standards like we talked about, but that's how we'll make sure they're met. Principal use EV charging centers. So like in your mind, you can think gas station, more or less. Those will require a planning application, and they'd follow whatever the appropriate development plan conditional use process would be. The development plan it would fall into would depend on the size of the site, and just our normal development plan applicability. So that may be projects you see in the future. The model code tells us that EV charging centers are kind of more of the forward-looking, like kind of preparation piece of this amendment. I think that's kind of like, while we're here, we might as well anticipate this future land use. I think the model code, the state, what we just anticipate is probably more accessory charging facilities, more probably coming our way on a sooner time frame than a principal use that may come before you. But if and when that happens, you'll be the first people to see it. Finally, the amendment, it adds a set of definitions to support the new EV uses. It's just to improve clarity and ensure consistent interpretation throughout the code. There's the use and its definition. There's no use standards, but that lives in Article 3. And then there's some other definitions that support that use. They're not part of the use definition, but they support it. So those are included in Article 8. In terms of the approval, wow, getting creative with my pronunciation. The approval criteria, this amendment is fully consistent with the community plan and the Broward County Climate Action Plan. I have a really hard time with this word, operationalizes our sustainability and mobility goals and implements the community plan direction. Oh, this is the new community plan. There's a very explicit section about EV infrastructure. So this obviously does that. So we're pleased to bring it to you. There's also specific city council goals around transportation, mobility, and environmental sustainability, reduce barriers to clean transportation infrastructure, keep our development framework up to date. And it's a little bit circular. City council wants to achieve the Routt County Climate Action Plan. So there's a little bit of a loop there. Overall, we find that it's consistent with the criteria for approval. We recommend approval. We support this amendment. Hope you do too. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah.
Open up to questions. If you guys don't mind, I want to ask one real quick and then dwell on it for a sec. So help me understand, Kelly, between centers and facilities, we have DCFC as part of a facility thing, right, as an accessory use, which is allowed in residential zone districts. You have, again, this, I think I'm probably understanding this wrong, right? So as I say through it, bear with me and please tell me how I'm understanding it incorrectly. You have screening landscaping applicability for DCFC and level 2 for charging facilities, but does that apply in single family and 2-family zone districts? Where otherwise screening and landscaping don't have standards. So does it still apply there? I hope desperately.
Can you please ask me one more time? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be dense. I want to make sure I give you
That's
the
great.
answer.
The question is,
Still
I
learning the
would
code.
like to see, I'll just tell you what my hope is, right? And then you tell me if the code's doing it. My hope is that when we are allowing the three-phase DCFC type charging in like RO zone districts, that we're not creating a scenario where somebody can put a big old transformer charging thing with the hook right there at the corner of their property line and their driveway unscreened. I don't think is a very successful solution for us. Them on their property, great, fast charge your own car, that's great, but screening should apply to that. But I don't know how you apply screening to residential zone districts because typically we don't have standards in those zone districts.
Okay, I read this. So it's an accessory use like that. I don't think like 1-family, 2-family, that's its use. And it has its own requirements, its own exemptions.
Okay.
The accessory use, EV charging facility, EV is its own use. It doesn't say, there's no like relational thing like, oh, you're an accessory to this use, therefore these standards do or do not apply. Like the accessory, the standards that apply to the accessory use apply regardless of the thing it's accessory to.
I think I understand. And just to make sure, so there's nothing, because right, like as you're showing us what's changing in the code, you're in applicability B3, right, is what you're adding. I just wanted to make sure that the applicabilities in like 1 and 2 aren't like removing 1 and 2 family projects from being part of it. And I don't, of course, have the entire code memorized. So I wasn't sure if they were like already exempted before we even got to this somehow. It sounds like they're not, but that just kind of continuing to explain where my concern was.
No, I also think maybe a little bit of like question in your mind might come because when you're looking at this amendment and you start with landscaping, it says exemptions, it says add 1. That add 1 is just adding the number 1. And then it says 1-family residential shall be exempt, and then add 2, and it talks about EV charging facility. So I think, I don't want to presume how you're receiving this information. That's not to amend 1. It's just adding a number, because right now it doesn't.
No,
have
of
one.
course I
And
agree with that.
similarly-
But that exemption is already existing. So it's existing in 402C that 1-family and 2 families are exempt from landscape standards. Further down in the code at 403B applicability, we're talking about this screening stuff, but already in 402, they've been exempted.
Okay, I feel like maybe that
No,
got
I
us a
think-
little bit away.
So
from
this section is, sorry, this single family, let's see, just read here. So the 1-family and 2-family residential principal uses are exempt from landscape standards of this section.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the screening wouldn't apply.
Because it's already been exempted from the entire section.
I guess I'm having a little trouble following because the primary use doesn't matter. Like the EV charging facility, the accessory use has its own standard. If it applies,
Okay.
it applies. Like it doesn't, there's no hierarchy of like, if this EV charging accessory use is accessory to a single family home, then it does not need to be screened. It just, you want to have an accessory charging facility, you're in the RO zone district, that's by right. So the use is by right. And then you would go through the standards. And let's see, the first one, landscaping would be the first one that you would encounter. And you would see, you're not proposing a one-family or two-family principal use, you're proposing an EV charging facility. So you'd go to 2.
Accessory use.
Accessory use, yeah. EV charging facility is an accessory use. That's why they have different names. So EV charging facilities proposed on a lot. Okay, so this is telling me I have a single-family home in this example. There's no changes to the single-family home. So I'm exempt from landscaping requirements, even though I was already exempt from them. So that's kind of that. But then so then we move down to screening and we do the same thing. I have a single family home, it's already there. I'm proposing, let's say it's level 2 for the purpose of this, and I want it at my house. So I would come down here and it says for EV charging facilities that include level 2, oh, that's me, the following things apply. It doesn't matter that I have a single family home. I want a level 2 charger at my home, so I have to screen it per this standard.
Okay.
Does that track?
I would love it if it's interpreted that way. It was just a gray enough area that I was like, if I'm just stupid, that's great. But if it is semi-confusing, then could we clarify the language so that I'm the only one moving forward who is ever confused about
Right.
this?
No, I think it's a good
That
question.
was the only
because I
kind
don't
of-
know that's the way we apply the code. Like, we wouldn't say, well, you have a secondary unit accessory use, and that's not exempt from the landscape standards, so we're applying the landscape.
Or like
Does
off-street
that-
parking
does that
comes
make
to
sense?
mind or something like that.
You know what I mean? Like, if you look at it that way, right?
I
don't know
guess-
that we apply the code like that, right? Like, where I think we consider the principal use and that the accessory uses fall under that, and they wouldn't necessarily be subject to, I mean, it's a really good question.
I mean,
So like, here's what I was proposing. Tell me if this frustrates you, but just to clarify and make sure that nobody else has the question, what if when you have that new add 3 and you say for EV charging facilities, this is in 403B,
Mhm.
for EV charging facilities that include DCFC and level 2 charging stations in all zone districts, something as simple as that,
So you'd
something
have to
that
change the
clarify.
applicability. I think you'd have to say, except for accessory EV.
That's fine.
charging.
If it's more complicated than that, but something, it's not like a simple couple of words that like points out that nobody's
be
exempt
done.
from it.
Yes, it could be done, and we do, and just to clarify, we do have standards for single family and duplex. We just don't require development review. Right, we have duplex design standards and just, and not
sure,
that
for
it,
sure,
not
sure,
that
sure.
it matters to
No,
exactly
I
what we're
agree,
talking
yeah.
about, but I just thought I'd mention.
Right, but like we
Right, 'cause
don't
we
for
do have
landscaping
standards, so
because,
it wouldn't be abnormal, I guess, to have a standard for
right.
single family and
And-
duplex, but we don't have any landscape standards currently.
Can I ask a question?
I'm sorry that my quick question didn't end up being quick, so.
No, it's about your question, just trying to understand maybe where the confusion is happening, possibly. Because landscaping is like a totally different section, and because we're only seeing pieces, it's like I feel like it's maybe getting combined with screening when they're totally different sections with different applicability. Like it seems pretty clear to me that single family homes are not exempt from the
From 403.
from screening, yeah. So it seems like it's clear. but
maybe
we
that does
use
make it cut
landscaping
and
to
dry.
screen sometimes, so is
Right.
that what's getting confusing, or is it? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
No, it could be as cut and dry if it was that sure that 403 applied to residential, single family and two family zoned
Yeah.
properties.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's my only worry is that a lot of times, as you know, you're not really worried about what the CDC says about landscaping
Yeah.
because you know that you're exempt immediately because you're a single family. Similarly, single family and duplex don't do a lot of screening in general. Not that
Yeah.
things don't apply, but it's just kind of not really referenced as obviously. And I just want to make this as obvious as possible, just for how we're applying those. Again, you can picture, I'm bringing up worst case scenario, obviously. Most level 2s would probably be in a garage or attached to the building because who would put them on a pedestal? That just is going to cost more money. But, well, unless you need to, I suppose. But just simplifying to make sure that they know that that does apply. Maybe it is obvious enough, and I just wanted to make sure. I could be convinced for sure.
No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't think that adding clarity to the code is ever a bad thing.
Sure.
And to be clear, it would screen the equipment, the utility equipment that supports the charge, like the
Right.
facility, not the facility itself, not the, yeah, not the plug. Sorry, I don't have one of these. You know what I mean? Like where you actually, with the computer and the charging equipment, it would just be the back end is what's proposed to be screened in here. Just want to make sure that was clear.
Well, I mean, like level 2, isn't that like a big box?
I think that's level 3 that gets.
No, level 2 is just a 220, like 50 amp wire or 100 amp, depending on what you're putting in. But yeah, it's just a wire to a outlet essentially. Level 3 though is 3-phase, so it's transformer that changes it to DC to charge your vehicle.
Which should be screened.
Right. Especially down, all of our residential areas, right? I mean, especially everywhere, but it's
We've got a level 3
right.
charger, and I put it on the, right next to where I park my car.
Right.
And there it is.
Or even better, I put it right next to the transformer at the edge of the street because then I don't have to run it as far. And now it's just right out there, unscreened, getting hit by snakes, stuff like
I
that.
understand.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a new topic or, new question, if we're okay moving on to the
What did
next thing.
staff come up with? Did you feel
Oh, yeah.
there's
Just real quick, yeah.
needed, or where are we going with this?
Yeah, I think we would need some direction if you intend to screen the actual,
No.
we're calling it a facility, right? Let's use the words.
Yeah, the words are
defined.
actually extremely important. And the words we chose are because the words available are limited. You can't call everything a station or it doesn't make sense. Like it can't just all be EV charger. So I know the definitions are a little bit dense and they feel like similar but different. But that's intentional. It's by design and it's the direction of the model code. So like I on one hand apologize for that. And on the other hand, this is as good as we've been able to get it so far. So yeah, I think it's really important for us to be able to make improvements or modifications to make sure we're all talking about the same thing and calling it the same thing. This is not a like critique or reprimand. It's mostly just to keep it straight because that's been kind of a challenge of this whole project.
Yes. So back to, if you're concerned about requiring screening landscaping for single family duplex, we're going to have to be explicit about that. And we may have to make some changes prior to going to council. So we'll need that direction because I don't believe that, well, given the questions about it, we should make it more clear.
Well,
We'll find the right way of doing that, but we just need the specific.
I think the three of you, Bob, Kelly, and Calais, have helped me compile the answer that I think I was looking for, which is that even if, this is Kelly's part, even if it's an accessory use, it would still need to determine if it needed to follow the screening 403 in general that talks about screening, no matter what the principal use is. And if that's true, then even if we put it as a use by right in literally every zone district, then no matter what the principal use is, these DCFC utility equipment would still have to be screened. If you agree with that, then I have no changes to make.
I think that's the way it's written now, that any level 2 are DCFC chargers, accessory chargers, stations, those are stations. Let me make sure I'm saying the right thing.
Well, you say utility equipment, which is the most correct, and I like it, but.
Right.
Well, it's like whether it applies or not is based on the charging station, the EV charging station.
No matter where it is.
No matter where it is.
Love it.
And that's
then I have no
intentional.
changes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for the lengthy conversation. Will you please change the subject? Well,
I don't know if I'm ready. I have a question. There is what seems like a small change in the definition of charging facility, well, charging center, well, they were all charging centers before, right? And now they're getting split into two different things, a charging center and a charging facility. But the original one said that the EV charging stations may be located in required parking spaces. And the new one, the new ones both change that to say that they provide charging for EVs located adjacent to dedicated spaces. So it went from they may be located to they have to have dedicated spaces, which is concerning for me for one very specific reason. We talk about preserving industrial land and making sure that we have space for industrial uses to do their stuff. And they have the land they have because that land was inexpensive at one point, and they can operate on it because it was inexpensive at one point. But imagine a landscaper who just uses their lot for outdoor storage and has all their trucks on it, stores all their materials, stores all their stuff, and they want to switch to EVs. They can't do that without, a lot of those outdoor storage lots are passed on an old code that didn't require parking lots or parking spaces. They just required an apron. And so I worry that that change in that definition creates a hurdle where they then have to do an entire development plan to create the parking spaces that they could then put charging on. Does that make sense? Or do I have that totally wrong?
I can't really speak to, some of that feels a little hypothetical to me.
I could name like 10 lots that are exactly in that position right now.
I mean, I think this is not talking about parking. Like in the use definition, it says that it should be located adjacent to dedicated space for vehicles while they charge. I mean, I think generally this will happen at parking spaces because that's where cars are located. So I think that's like the natural thing. I mean, I don't know exactly how those things would come together. I think where cars are required, like want to park, need to be paved. If we receive, maybe I don't have the answer to your question right now. I don't really know how those would come together because.
If we received
I mean, I guess.
application for EV charging and an outdoor storage area,
Okay, I think, okay, maybe tell me what you think.
is that like
yeah,
the question?
basically.
I
Right?
think if the site,
Not only that, but a legal non-conforming outdoor storage.
no, actually, I would say if it's legally conforming with its approved plan, or maybe it's legally non-conforming, that's the principal use.
Like it's a gravel parking area, but that was legally built or legal when it was.
That would be legally conforming with its approval. Or maybe it's legally non-conforming. It never got an approval. It's been happening way longer than before the standards that would currently preclude it.
Non-conforming just means it's not conforming to today's standards, which requires paving.
I'll complete my thought. I think we get the point, but I think it would have to be either happened in advance of the code that would currently preclude it, making it legally non-conforming, or it would have to be conforming with its approval. And then we'd be applying the standards for the accessory use, kind of similar to our discussion before, to that use. If someone has an unpaved spot that is not legally conforming or legally non-conforming and wanted to put an accessory charging facility there, well, yeah, they might need to pave it. It would be a spot that was never permitted. So I think that answers your question.
right.
Like,
If
it
it
depends
was
on the state.
On an outdoor storage lot, if was legal or legal non-conforming, we're just putting I gotta use the right words, EV charging facility that would not require paving.
I thought that Kelly just said the
Oh,
opposite.
she just said the opposite.
No, I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
We're saying the same
So
thing.
if it is a legal use on a lot that was approved or maybe happened before,
Mm-hmm.
and they propose charging, when it talks about located adjacent to dedicated spaces.
As long as it's not changing the use. I mean, if it's going to be a parking space, then we need to pave it,
Sure.
right? It's now as part of a parking lot, but if
Okay.
you're, right?
Yeah, I think like maybe the whole accessory use, it includes a direct statement, I think that relates to this. I'm going to read it. It says, when EV charging facilities are proposed on a lot with no changes to existing principal uses, the existing use shall be exempt from additional site improvements or other requirements, provided the EV charging facilities otherwise conform with applicable land use regulations of the CDC. I think that speaks directly to this circumstance.
I think that's talking about other aspects of the site.
Right.
Right, which is what I think you're bringing up. If you have an aspect of the site that's legally, that conforms with its approval, or it has a legal non-conforming registration, and there's no changes proposed to it, then as long as the EV charging facilities otherwise conform, then you're good to go.
I guess I'm concerned with this being interpreted that they don't otherwise conform because there are no adjacent dedicated spaces beside which to put the EV charging facility.
Okay, I mean, I think I hear your feedback. It sounds like you're concerned about describing the location of accessory EV charging facilities as next to a place where a vehicle is. I hear you.
I think it's the dedicated spaces.
Okay.
And versus like previously it said they may be located in required parking spaces. And that seemed more clear to me that they may be, but if you have some other place that you store vehicles, then they may be there too. Where this sounds, it would be very easy to interpret this, that they need to be next to a dedicated space, and that could be interpreted as a required parking space, which
I mean,
I know they're all kind of.
Doesn't say that, but I hear I hear you for sure.
That was my only question.
Something to noodle on, yeah.
What's that?
Something to noodle on for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Any other questions for Kelly as we consider this? No? We have no public. I'll skip public comment. If you guys have no other questions, we could move into our discussion and motion portion.
Great to see this move forward. I'm really excited about losing that language about limiting the number of EV stations per parking lot, per parking space. It's like if someone wants to have all EV parking spots as an accessory use, that's their right, even if it doesn't make sense to us to do so. So yeah, I think you did a great job with this. I hope the future state regulations don't require us to reinvent the wheel again.
Yeah, sounds great.
And is there more discussion?
You can make a motion.
In honor of Mr. Augusta, I move to approve PL 2025-0282. Or at least recommend approval.
Do I have to wait for a second before I can keep talking?
Don't you just, well, you may not want to make a second, so never
I
mind.
don't want to make a second.
Does anybody want to make a second? I'll second it. Any discussion on the motion?
I think I'd like to see that further clarification. But maybe you're satisfied with it, but I guess, I don't know about that one, but I think I would like to see just like a couple of really minor changes before this becomes what we use to decide what happens to somebody's proposal.
I think my hardest part with, like, I definitely don't want loopholes to exist, right? As much as I definitely support this in general, I don't want loopholes to exist. I had my own loophole worry. You're talking about yours. I was struggling to understand how those specific storage lots were being affected, how they don't have parking and how they would fall into a loophole. I was confused. So I'm having a hard time helping you even find a way to do language in order for us to like recommend language as a part of this or something like that, as opposed to just supporting the what did you make? Motion.
Yeah.
Maybe you could help me, or
can try.
maybe you could just say for your thing what your piece is, and of course, city council is going to hear this. I mean, there's a couple of different ways we could go, but.
Yeah. I think it's just like that, what is the definition of a dedicated space or dedicated spaces? That feels like parking spaces, like what's a,
Mhm. It does to me as well.
Way to ask that
I get that.
question. I was like, so staff, does an outdoor storage facility have a designated parking location?
Depends on which one, right? 'Cause this,
Any of
we now require parking spaces for,
Parking, right, but
yeah.
for outdoor storage, we
But
don't
no-
designate where every piece of equipment has to
No,
go.
no,
I think.
no. It's
That's
just a free for
kinda
all,
what-
yeah.
Pillay is alluding to.
Right.
What are those spaces where those vehicles are being stored, not parked? Are those designated spots that would meet the code, that language in the code? And that's what I kept hearing Pillay ask.
It's the word, the issue is the word designated,
yeah.
Yes.
right?
Dedicated, yeah. And if they are being stored like that, then aren't they, and I could be wrong, aren't they
Yeah. I think we can,
Can we get?
such long-term storage that do they really justify needing to be plugged in? Like if you're taking it and leaving it and using the power, it's not outdoor vehicle storage, it's a parking place.
No, it's, I mean, those lots get used for vehicles that move daily, back and forth. Yeah, construction use or landscapers use those lots, or I'm trying to think of some other uses. The tow truck, the towing company. I mean, his is a newer approval, but like those are the kind of uses, and they're moving those vehicles all the time. So, but they're allowed to be stored on those lots
Interesting.
outside.
Well, that helps because that at least I can explain why I'm confused, is I didn't think that would be considered outdoor storage. I would have called that, those were being parked.
Yeah, for whatever reason, that's how they're being used. I
So-
don't know if
So that's why I'm confused with your point, and I understand it now. Thank you.
The other thing that I brought up in the initial meeting about this was the other possibility that I thought may happen would be like work lives, where people have like a use that they do all day.
I think.
The best example I could come up with then, and this is the one I'm going to use now, is a flower shop. They
I don't know how else to.
have their whole thing set up. They make their flower arrangements, whatever. Then they leave for the day. They have an EV delivery vehicle. They don't own the work live. They lease it. So the only place that they could like
Maybe
put
take
their
Still
flower delivery vehicle is inside where they can jump off of a panel.
a vehicle.
Could they do that at night? Could they park that business vehicle inside their work live and then move it back outside, because that's the only place they have to charge? I don't know. I can't tell from this code if that were proposed, would that get approved? Because that's not a dedicated space for a vehicle. In fact, it's not a space for a vehicle. It's a workspace, but at night, if they want to charge their vehicle, would that be approved? I don't know. I can't tell if that meets code or not.
Interesting. I would personally have a hard time encouraging that.
Well, I'm not encouraging it. I'm saying it could be proposed. What would the answer be? And if you're not encouraging, then are we discouraging people who can't own their own building from buying EVs for their businesses? I don't know. Maybe I'm playing devil's advocate at this point, but
Right, it's,
these are the properties I know really well. So I'm like trying to think through all the possibilities of like tenants that we have. And nobody's asked us to put an EV charger in anywhere, but
We always let them build it and put it in.
well, if they
You own
built it, if they built it and put it in, they would put it in inside because that's where the panel is. Like, there's no way to get, unless you run some long electrical cord and then you lose, it degrades after that far. So I don't know. I'm just trying to think through possibilities.
So if I understand, and I honestly, I don't think I do.
And I'm doing it too.
It's, you know, there's a lot, and it's a construction lot. Let's say they're construction vehicles moving in and out all of the time. And you want to put in an EV charging station. So you put the EV charging station in there. Now it becomes a dedicated parking spot for someone who wants to charge their vehicle, which means I couldn't use that space or that area any other time. even though I'm waiting for a delivery of another truck or another truck to move out or whatever it is. Is that the concern?
I mean, that's not exactly the concern, but could be a concern. Like, I just don't know what dedicated space means. That terminology is confusing to me. I think that's of it.
Okay.
Could I offer maybe I think so it's trying to describe an area where a vehicle might be and the charger has to be located next to it in order to charge it. It has to be close, right? So this is just trying to describe without using the word parking space. That's why we changed it, where that might be. I hear your concern. I think that if you remove the word dedicated, it describes that area and maybe alleviates confusion.
Yeah, I think it would.
Okay, great.
Dedicated sounds, like something. maybe
Sounds like
part-time.
something striped and paved.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so if you were gonna stick a charger out in one of your dirt lots at Native Excavating for 2 of your trucks, you'd have to pave them and stripe them, and then you'd have to come forward with a development plan for that. That's her concern, I
That's
believe.
I don't know that that's how it would apply, but
I think
we just found an easy solution.
Like your easy solution.
We could stay and still talk about it more.
We could, I mean.
easy solution, that is, that's acceptable to me. I guess in talking about it, my other question came up about what if that space is inside of something? What, like, that question may come up. Should we go ahead and answer?
You brought that up at work session.
They
right?
did, yeah. And I had forgotten about it until we started
Yeah.
talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would just go through like it's inside, so screening wouldn't be a thing, right? Like, I mean, I don't really know what the issue would be off the top of my head. It seems like when you have something indoors,
Well, I think that it goes
just-
back to dedicated because
But we're taking,
that space
we're taking out
you're
dedicated.
taking out that, and I think that takes away your concern
But if it
about the
was,
flower shop.
yeah, I mean, it seems like if we took out dedicated, that the indoor question kind of gets answered, but I would love to understand if that was the intention.
well, I think it depends on the use, like you can't park a car in the middle of a warehouse and tell us like, oh, we're going to charge it. And like, it's supposed to be a warehouse that's storing something, like a contractor shop, vehicles are like, that's part of the use, storing vehicles. That's probably something you're really familiar with, really common in the industrial zone district. Those might go together great, like peanut butter and chocolate. You know what I mean? Like I can see that, but not like, I think it kind of depends on like the building and the space. And I don't think I can necessarily answer that question because I can't like envision all the possible scenarios. But I mean, this amendment is really set up to make EV accessory charging facilities easy. It's meant to make them reduce the barriers and really just get as many of them as we can. So, I mean, that's the really high level read on this amendment. So we're trying to make it happen. I don't think there's anything precluding that, but if you have a warehouse and you're telling us you want to park a car in the middle of it to charge it, like, I think we might have a little problem with that. But again, that's just me supposing something. Like, we'd have to see it.
Sure.
Would you like to offer a friendly to Rich to remove dedicated?
What do I?
Have Rich change his motion to agree with that and remove the word dedicated?
I do that?
Literally just what I said.
It just, yes.
Would you like to remove your motion, revoke your motion? And
I will accept a friendly amendment to
Thank you.
eliminate, designated or
Dedicated.
dedicated from the, I guess it's the definition section
The definition section of the charging facility.
or charging facility.
Great.
I'll second.
Accept it.
That's awesome. Great discussion. Anybody else have anything else on this motion? No? Great.
Yeah, I do have one.
Okay, good.
Going back to what you were talking about, Brian, earlier, about 402C, adding one. I think for a novice reader of this code, they'll read 402.C.1 and go, oh, I don't even need to look at the screening or landscaping, and they'll just skip it. So it would be nice to see that, a couple more words in there that says, you know, either, let's run out of the definitions here, that, let's see, EV charging utility equipment, that's just the transformers in the back end, right? And then EV charging stations are the stand-up thing with the plug. I have that right? And
Okay, so like an EV charging facility, the accessory use, it is made up of components, such as an EV charging station, that could be the level 1, level 2 DCFC. And it also, depending on the type of station that it includes, has certain EV charging utility equipment.
right. So
But I think, sorry, but you need to go to the definition to understand what needs to be screened in the Article 4 landscape, right?
right, and then you got to jump down to Article 8 to figure out what you're screening, and then you got to jump back up to landscaping and then try to figure out if you're still exempt or not.
At first you jump to landscaping and find out you are exempt, but then you got to jump to screening separately, which is separate, but you still have to do it. There's a lot of ways you need to understand how to operate our code in order to actually find out first what you're doing, and second, whether or not you have to screen it or not.
Yeah, and even if that language was just like, see this section for screening and see this section for definitions, just so you know right where you're supposed to go to find these things out, because, I mean, a few of us here in the room read the code a lot for our jobs, and we can navigate our ways around pretty quickly, but people that don't necessarily do it, homeowners that just want to put in a charger, are going to be lost in the weeds here. And that's what I'm worried about.
I think, so the EV charging facility definition, it says at the beginning, an establishment or location with DCFC level 2 or level 1 EV charging stations. So it already is including those words in this definition. And EV charging station, that's capitalized, so it lets you know that it's like a defined term. So I think that if you read this, this is kind of my logic, right? Part of the difficulty with this is that the state requires that level 1 and level 2 be exempt from certain things. And the combination, like how our code is set up, the way we have to like kind of consolidate things to make it simple, but then chop it up to make like DCFC has these standards, but level 2 doesn't, and level 1 is exempt from like, in order to do that, this was like what seemed like the most simple way. So let me talk you through this and you can tell me. So just looking at the definition, which I think is like a reasonable thing for anybody to do that is proposing this, it starts with DCFC level 2 or level 1. So that's not like what exactly that is. Yes, that's down in the definitions, but it's telling you from the beginning that that's like a thing you need to be aware of. So if you're proposing an accessory EV charging facility, you have to know what kind of charging station you're trying to have. And then as you work down through the standards, when you get to screening standards, it talks about DCFC level 2. And I like, that's not, I guess what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way is that's not the first place you've seen those, you know, like if you started with the definition, you've seen the station names before. So I get the jumping back and forth. We've tried to like, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So, I'm interrupting you, I'm sorry.
No, please.
That's the definition of the use.
Right.
And we also have a definition
Mhm.
of the actual,
Like that term.
like the physical equipment,
Mhm.
right? And so Article 4 is referencing the actual equipment. It says these uses, for these accessory uses, this was what needs to be screened. And then it's talking about the definitions in Article 8.
Yes.
Right.
Like that term, EV charging stations, the 3 kinds, is further elaborated upon in Article 8.
Right.
But those 3 words, or those
Same
3
with EV
types.
charging utility equipment
Mhm.
is in Article 8.
Right.
So that's what needs to be screened
Mhm.
in the screening reference.
when you have a level 2 or DCFC charging station.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have an idea, AJ.
When you have the use, yeah, when you
Right,
have that
let's hear it.
use, you need to screen this part of it.
They have a sentence in their 306C, while they're, where it's describing electrical vehicle charging facility. They have a sentence, EV charging facilities may include supporting site improvements like lighting, landscaping, and EV charging utility equipment. We should just add the word comma screening within there, and that will just help them point to at least thinking about it. They've already added a great sentence that's trying to remind us that we should be looking for stuff. All they pointed to us, though, is landscaping, which those are exempt from. But if we also added screening, we're pointing them to yet another good direction. We may not have said 403, just like on landscaping, we didn't say 402, but we could just easily add that word, and at least we're being a little bit more descriptive.
Right. Then
Does
they,
that seem
then they
adequate
at
to you?
least are thinking about looking at screening.
Right. At least it's
Even
been
though
brought
they'll
up when you
read
first
past and
read.
say, okay, landscaping is exempt, but it does say screening in 306. See,
Does that sound good? I mean, that
I
would,
think I'm all right with that. Yeah.
makes me happy. I don't know if that sounds
Yeah.
what you were
I
worried about.
think that at least adds to it. It gives you one more thing that you need to go look at.
Yeah. Rich, would you accept a friendly amendment that adds screening
too.
behind landscaping in that
It's
sentence?
staff concur with that additional language is not troublesome.
Well, I mean, I think it's a little confusing because landscaping can be screening. Also, I wanted to.
No, lighting is its own section. Landscaping is its own section. That is,
Okay, another thing I wanted to like kind of throw in the mix is the applicability for the buffering, screening, and fencing section works a little differently than the applicability for most of our other sections. It shall apply to land uses and development in all zone districts when specifically required by the CDC or as a condition of a land use or development approval to mitigate land use. Fencing standards apply in all zone districts. So part of why this applicability language is a little different is because this section applies a little differently. It doesn't say it applies to all zone districts. It applies to all uses in all zone districts. That's how most of the applicability statements in this section work. So that's just like a little more context to why you're seeing this section be treated a little differently, because it is.
I appreciate that, but I wasn't talking about the applicability section. I was in 306C, which was really just the definition. So we're saying EV charging facilities may include supporting site improvements like, and then you listed off some things that it may include. Screening is one of those things.
And may, I would like to go further than may. It sounds like almost always screening would be.
Almost always, although
May
landscaping
is still
doesn't
the- May
always.
is still the right
No,
word.
May is
but,
still okay, but
screening's a big one that almost will definitely be required. Whereas lighting and landscaping might not be.
Screening sounds okay to me.
Two, sorry, I keep trying to find it in the night.
306C
Three, oh.
dot 7.
The definition of the use and saying what it includes. Personally, I don't think that's necessary, but if that's a needed clarification, happy to add it, for sure.
you can do whatever you want with my friendly amendment, but that's my
You
request.
can offer a friendly amendment in appropriate language, including the where it's going to go and what
After the word landscaping in that sentence,
in section 306, which,
306C, it's on our page.
yeah, I'm looking at it.
Got an establishment or location. This is the first sentence. Second sentence, EV charging facilities may include supporting site improvements like lighting, comma, landscaping, comma, add screening, comma, and EV charging equipment.
Thank you. I accept that.
Great, thank you. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Thanks, AJ. Any other discussion on this motion? Awesome, I'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Great, then that passes unanimously. Bob, do you have a director's report tonight?
I do not.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I was excited for one, though.
Yeah, one of these days I'll surprise you.
We don't have any old business either. Does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, we're adjourned at 8:23.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for bearing with that.